Long, there are people who from last year are still waiting to see.
Yeah.
So this is a good thing. Now let's see how it's coming about. I'm sorry, I know you have a story to share, Dennis. The era of severely sick patients from rural areas seeking specialized care in the capital Nairobi or other major cities could be coming to an end if the latest developments in the National Equipment Service Program progress as intended. The program will see the deployment of an initial 24 diagnostic imaging CT scan machines, 2 diagnostic imaging mammogram machines, 30 operating theatres, and 100 laboratories across the country. Hey, oh God in heaven. Jehovah, please, let them just do it. Please. Can you see how I'm praying? The initiative, structured under a multi-billion free-for-service model, is designed for efficiently upgrade infrastructure and strengthens early detection and treatment of common diseases in public health facilities. We know that the direction that we should be going for health is preventative as opposed to curative. So this is great because you can actually find things, and I hope that they actually get to the counties. I hope that they have then the people who operate
the personnel,
my English is the personnel to handle them, because that's another thing. I hope it will be great.
I think the entire ecosystem of the medical of the medical systems need to be there, because then again we'll have all these facilities without personnel who are well paid, who are well remunerated, who are respected at their jobs, will also be installed, because just having the facilities without them is zero.
I believe in the theory of peace by inches, and one day I'll get a chance to play that speech. It's my favorite speech in all the world. It's not Martin Luther, it's peace by inches. Now, the thing is that for me, I have learned for my own sanity to celebrate what has been done. It is not my job to prophesy what will go wrong. You know what we said today? Act as if
you will never fail. In fact, this one is going to happen. There will be preventative care in counties.
Yes, and women will have mammograms.
People will go and get their CT scans. This thing will happen. It will happen.
You see, it is also good just to speak as a Kenyan who knows that initially equipment have been brought in the country and personnel to operate these equipment have not been there. So even as we're being optimistic, let us as well be cautious.
But also that problem was years ago, and many places where you go today, the technicians are there.
Are you sure?
Yes.
They're there. Give us another story as we wrap it up in a minute and a half.
So, the resale of public assets should be transparent. That is from the People Daily. The Treasury is actively involved in the disposal of state-owned companies to raise funds for depleted government coffers as tax revenues continue to fall below target. Kenya is struggling to contain skyrocketing inflation and a plunging currency that has sent debt repayment costs soaring. Among those identified for disposal is Kenya's Oil and Gas Corporation, pipeline operator, various agricultural businesses, and a book publisher. Now, according to the Treasury, the move is meant to bring fiscal consolidation and spur economic development. There is, however, emerging concern that the once profit-making assets that were plagued by mismanagement and plunder could be sold for song to well-connected individuals with land they sit on as the primary motive. So, all these property and government installations that are being sold, there is need for it to be transparent, because there is fear that it is being sold to those who are pro-government and for individuals who just want the land and not the establishment.
You know,
talking about transparency.
Well, transparency is key, and in fact, there is an asset disposal act, and there's also a way that has been established by law by which these assets should be gotten rid of by the government. Now, what we need to do as a people is to make sure that the structure is followed.
Yes.
However,
okay.
See, time
the
with
value of a business is a going concern. Willing buyer, willing
seller. Very true. This is a Situation Room. It's Monday, the 25th of May, and we're handling those stories that matter. They'll continue. XN Iraqi will be in the hot seat at 7. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
Morning, this is the News Wire. I'm Lydiah Obaga. President William Ruto has reiterated his commitment to transforming the nation despite opposition from his opponents. Speaking in Kibra, the president vowed not to be deterred by anyone in his quest to transform the future of the nation.
I am a man on a mission. Number one, to unify the people of Kenya. Na jambo la pili ni transformation ya nchi hii. Transformation ya Kenya, askofu vile umesema, majira ndio haya, wakati ndio huu, nafasi ndio hii, miaka ndio haya ya transformation ya taifa letu la Kenya. Na kwa mapenzi ya Mungu, hiyo assignment Mungu amenipatia ya transformation ya Kenya haitachelewa tena. Transformation ya kilimo ituzalishie chakula, ituondolee njaa na itupatie mapato na kutuongezea exports.
He has expressed the need to ignore leaders who spread tribalism, insisting on uniting Kenyans. His statement comes at a time when accusations have intensified, with his former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua leading a group of critics calling him a fraudster intent on tearing the country apart.
Inaniamurisha kama rais kuunganisha watu wa taifa letu la Kenya na kuondoa ubaguzi wa aina yote. Na jambo la pili ni vizuri, na tutafanya bidii kuhakikisha kwamba tunawaunganisha wananchi wa taifa letu la Kenya. Ndio hata maana tumeweka serikali ya broad based, ya mapana na marefu, kuhakikisha kwamba wananchi wote wa Kenya kutoka sehemu zote wanajumuishwa katika serikali na uongozi wa Kenya, ili tuwapokonye nafasi wale wa chuki, hasira, kisirani, wanaotaka kutumia ukabila kugawanya wananchi wa Kenya. Wasipate nafasi katika taifa letu la Kenya.
At the same time, he has continued to urge Kenyans to register with SHA.
Leo tuko na mpango ya SHA ambayo inafikia kila mmoja, kila Mkenya. Sasa inawezekana mtu wa Kibra hapa, mama ambaye hangekuwa na uwezo, kijana mzee ambaye hangekuwa na nafasi ya kuwa na bima ya afya, kwa SHA inawezekana kwa kila Mkenya. Na tumesema katika hiyo SHA wewe utalipa kulingana na uwezo wako, na yule ambaye huna uwezo tutakulipia kama serikali ya Kenya. Lakini kila mmoja wetu ataenda hospitalini, atatibiwa na ataenda nyumbani bila ya kuhangaishwa na bills ya hospitali.
Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua now says that artists from the Mount Kenya region who visited his successor Kithure Kindiki at his current residence on Friday must apologize to the Mount Kenya community. Speaking at AIPCA Kihoya in Murang'a County, Gachagua stated that these artists are traitors to the community. He alleged that at the meeting the musicians were asked to lie to the people that state programs are working quite well.
Wasipoomba msamaha, tuwache kusikiza nyimbo zao. Number 2, zile entertainment joint wanaenda, wasiitwe huko tena. Na wewe kama ni mwenye klabu, ukiita huyo mtu, customers wahame waende pahali ingine. Tena ile mtandao, you unfollow them. Si ndio? You unfollow them. Because wameenda kuchukua shilingi 50,000. Na pahali wanaenda entertainment, wale watu wameenda pale kwa sababu akili imechemuka, kwa sababu ile Kasongo ametusumbua. Wanaenda kuwatubuiza ndio akili zitulie. Hao wameenda kukaa na wale watu ambaye wametuumiza, wametuletea hizo shida.
And finally, Juja MP George Koimburi, who was captured on Sunday by unknown individuals outside a church in Kiambu County just hours after his supporters demanded that security agencies reveal the legislator's whereabouts, is still missing. Koimburi was reportedly arrested while leaving the church in Mugutha, and his wife was injured during the scuffle. That's the News Wire. I'm Lydiah Obaga.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
One of the things that are ailing our country is negative ethnicity. You find you as a state officer, instead of thinking as a Kenyan, you think like a tribal person.
Let me tell you something. The biggest problem we have had in this country is a leadership deficit. There is nothing that you are going to do in the process of change if you are not a risk taker. So you really have to pursue your vision to a logical conclusion and even be ready to step on people's toes.
When it comes to the economy, you can't run away with it. They say statistics are like bikinis. They reveal a lot, but they conceal the vitals. And so government people would throw statistics at you and tell you they're revealing a lot of information to you, but it's really concealing the real vitals.
We need to get out of that, because when we want to grow our democracy, one basic thing that really requires to be understood by the political class, by all of us, is institutions are critical.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
In this country, 6 families and 8,000 Kenyans control 90% of the GDP. We are not a country. We are a plantation. We work for Ruto.
When you're telling the judges court orders are papers or they will not obey court orders, they're sitting and you're seeking orders from them. So how are they supposed to interpret it? Isn't it an oxymoron?
When you see a judiciary that seems to be under some control somewhere, you start questioning. We have very powerful governors, but they don't use their offices to serve the people.
If you are not shameful to do what you are doing, why should we protect you?
I'm human, everybody's human. So when you're told, kuja tuongee, I mean, you'd be a fool to say, stagi kuongea today. Conversations have to be had, you know?
People in leadership should only go into leadership if they are ready and willing to change the lot of the people.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, on your side.
Traffic.
Brought to you by I&M Bank, empowering you to achieve your dreams and secure your future with our financial solutions across Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Mauritius. I&M Bank, on your
Mature,
side.
intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
A very good morning to you at 9 minutes after 7 o'clock. This is The Situation Room. It is Kenya's biggest conversation. Ndu and Dennis and Mark with you this morning, and getting into the last week of May. Many things are happening in the country. Many questions are being asked about how far and basically who's on your side. Well, let me tell you about one set of folks who are on your side, and that's the I&M Bank Promise. Imagine having a trusted ally by your side all the time. They empower you with the tools and support to turn your aspirations into reality. Whether it's a business venture, your child's education, or securing your future, I&M Bank is here for you. Now, flexible financial solutions to personalized guidance, we're on your side. Championing your progress and celebrating your successes. Don't just bank, build your future with a partner who believes in you. So you can experience the power of on-your-side banking. Find out more at any I&M branch close to you. And always remember that I&M Bank is on your side. All right. So this morning, we have in the hot seat Professor Exen Iraki. He's been here before, and when we are talking about matters to do with where the economy is going, in my opinion, very few better people to then be able to have that conversation with us today. Prof, good morning.
Good morning, and how are you?
I am well, thank you.
I haven't been here for a long time.
I know. Is something wrong?
That's what we should need to discuss before we go on air. But I believe that wherever I've been, I've been doing the right thing.
You believe you've been doing the right thing?
Yes.
We thank God for you.
But don't ask me for evidence.
of whether you've been doing the right thing or not.
Evidence is there.
And,
well, we shall see.
When I came back today, I found strangers in the studio. They have not introduced themselves.
Okay.
Strangers.
But I have full trust and faith in them.
Okay. The strangers to your left and to your right, not the one in front of you?
Yes, the ones on my right, my right, and my left.
So the stranger on your left is Dennis Aseto.
Why is he not smiling?
Okay.
You know, I've actually hosted Prof before on KTN.
But on KTN.
But it's okay.
He must have been wearing a mask.
It must have been during COVID times.
On my right does not look very mysterious.
His name is Mark Bichachi.
He bought me a drink one time. But I will not disclose the type of
I was about to ask for the details of those X-Files, but we shall leave that for a different time.
Was the seat high as the one in the morning?
The seat I'm sitting on?
Yes. Was it as high as it was in the morning where you were getting the drink?
It was actually a giraffe seat.
Now you know.
You need more details on that.
Maybe afterwards. So guys, our live streams are up. We did have a bit of a technical hitch, so we lost connection, but we're back. Technology on a Monday morning, I tell you, is a totally different world out there. But here we are, getting back into things, so not to worry. Prof is here this morning. He's going to be talking to us about Kenya's GDP growth, budget and policy challenges. What exactly are we going towards? Public participation on the 2025-2026 finance bill into the budget is happening. The chair of the committee made that very clear last week in terms of what's happening going into the new week. But before we get into those, Prof, we're going to share with you today's proverb. Mark is going to tell you which country you're in this week, and then we would love to get your interpretation of the same. Fair enough?
So, Prof, the proverb today is from Ghana, the land which hosts the Akwasambo Dam, and also a nice little town near Accra, where Jomo Kenyatta, Haile Selassie, Kwame Nkrumah once met to strategize on how to free Africa. Yes, I love this country because it is the one country in Western Africa that reminds me of Kenya, except that they are loud like their neighbors, the Nigerians.
Interestingly, there are three countries that separate Ghana and Nigeria. Everybody thinks that we border each other. We don't.
Yeah.
It's a neighboring country. Do you not say it's a bordering country?
I was just saying that I'm sharing that information. Anyhow.
Yes. You're equally loud. So this equally
Maybe
loud.
more. Maybe more.
They're not loud. Ghanaians are not loud.
Ghanaians are not really loud.
I lived in Ghana for a while. Yes, they're loud.
Because you're Kenyan, so...
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
So, Prof, this is our proverb for the day. You must act as if it is impossible to fail.
That proverb should be domiciled in Kenya. It is one of the best proverbs I've heard about a long time. You act as if it is impossible
to fail.
If you look at the economy today, that should be the mantra. That should be the line cry.
Yeah.
You act as if it is impossible to fail.
Yeah.
That means you never fail.
True.
And I'm not surprised that proverb is from Ghana. Very resilient guys. I've been there a number of times. The most memorable thing I remember is not the Kosovo Dam. It is some guys hawking boiled snails on the streets.
Oh, yeah.
Don't ask me whether I ate.
And they're huge.
Yes. And the way you are looking at me, you could have tasted. And I hear there's some Kenyans who are exporting snails to Ghana.
Yeah.
Kenyans are very entrepreneurial.
Yeah. They're acting as if failing is an impossibility.
In fact, by exporting snails, that shows how it is impossible to fail.
There you go.
True. And that is why, after every proverb we say, a big head is a big load.
You need to you really need to let go of the big head.
but I have some concern.
Yeah.
Before you gave me the English version of that proverb, why not in Akan?
Because he doesn't speak it.
But at first I don't speak Akan, and the closest thing that I'm capable of almost speaking of you are the tree, which is Akwesi, Debi. What other thing? Debi is no. What else?
We can just keep it at no.
I'm sure Ghanaians will be very happy.
We'll just keep it at no and we'll be fine. Okay, so we're going to get into the conversation this morning. Finance Bill 2025, 2026 is where we are. Finance Bill into the budget, and then looking at, budget policy and appropriations. We're into hectic, or rather intense public participation currently, getting into it rather, in terms of what Kenyans think about this new bill. And even as we do, getting into the time where the budget then will be read, the questions are about GDP growth and budget and policy challenges. Let's start from the policy challenges that we see. That we've been dealing with a flailing economy for some time. We've talked about inflation dropping, but we can't see the results of that dropping of inflation on the tables and in the pockets of Kenyans. Where are we currently, Prof, from your point of view?
Let me start from the beginning. GDP growth. What are the news that should be trending in Kenya today and should be discussed in the State House, on the streets, in the hamlets, should be the decline in GDP growth rate from 5.7% in 2023 to 4.7% in 2024. Because once the GDP growth rate slows down, it has consequences on the economy. And it's not surprising that before we read the budget, we look at the economic survey, how the economy has performed in the previous period. Because that gives us very good insight into our next budget. Because the next cycle should depend on the previous cycle. So when the GDP does not grow, there are some consequences. For example, job losses. If you have a business, you have fewer customers. You make less profit. And in the worst case, people are not able to pay their debts. It's not surprising that a few days ago, there was a very long list of late defaulters by City County of Nairobi. It's not surprising that if you look at the pages of the diaries, there are very many pages that have property and businesses being auctioned. So I think that should be the starting point in our discussion about what is happening in the Kenyan economy today. It's not growing as fast as expected. And people might ask, why is the economy not growing as fast as expected? There are two reasons. One, the economy grows when people consume or when people invest. So it shows that we're not investing enough, we are not consuming enough. And why are we not doing that? Because we are not very optimistic about tomorrow. If you remember what has happened in the last 2 years, there has been a lot of pessimism. So we want to postpone investment. We want to postpone our consumption. We want to postpone paying debts and other obligations. So one way to turn out the economy and maybe have a higher growth rate is to make Kenyans feel good. Let's Kenyans believe that tomorrow is better than today. Who is going to do that? You and me and our political leaders.
And we talk about our political leadership in the country and the key role that they play in ensuring that there is trust, there is stability, especially in the business environment. But one would beg to ask now, for us to bring in investors, for the economy to do better, there has to be a proper environment for doing business. And one would argue that currently does not exist in the country. So how then should, say, policymakers, you and I, look at how we can improve the business environment in the country for things to improve?
The starting point is always the image of the country. If you ask anybody on the streets of Nairobi where they would want to migrate to, they'll tell you, I want to go to the US. Or I want to go to UK. I want to go to Europe. And they have not been there. But those countries have created a very positive image of their country. And that attracts investors, attracts tourists, attracts immigrants. So we must start by changing the image of our country to make it feel like it's a very homely place. It's a place everybody want to come. Now, beyond the policies, people might have a very good image of the country, but they eventually come in and find out what's happening. For example, I don't know whether any of you is married, but before you married that girl, you gave her a very good image of your home, of your family. But when she came to your home, she faced the reality, whether you are a good family, welcoming, and so on. So when investors come, they meet the reality. And that reality includes things like taxes. Is paying taxes very easy? Is it punitive? Is it militarized? Apart from things like taxes, you have to think about services. Do you have good roads? Do you have water? Do you have power? Everybody's complaining about power being very expensive. So investors don't come because they love you. They come because they want to make some money. And by making money, they also benefit the country. So let's improve the image. But apart from improving the image, let's improve the services.
So you have to actually improve, because when we talk about GDP, essentially we're talking about the economic value that is present in a nation in a particular period.
Yes.
Right? So when you look at it and you say that the number has been dropping over time, that your manufacturing industry perhaps has taken a hit, that you're not making as much as you should, that even what you have available, either you're not selling, you're not exporting, you're importing, you're spending more on what's coming from outside as opposed to what's coming from inside. Is the panacea to that essentially then doing more within the country and then selling it out?
I like your question, because there are three words I would like to use to react to your question. One of them is productivity. We need to be more productive, do more with what we have. Number two, we need to think about capacity utilization. Have we utilized the capacity this country have? Whether it is schools, whether it is in hospitals, whether it is in our industries. Even before we think of bringing investors, even before we think of expanding what we have we done enough with what we have?
Sure.
For example, if you look at SpiceFM, the one we are in the studio today, have you done enough with what you have here? Have you been able to get all the money you could have got from adverts and so on before you think of expansion? So let's be more productive, let's be more efficient, and very important, let's also focus on quality. Because you talked about export. Because one way to expand our economy is to export to other countries.
Sure.
So people are not going to buy your things because just for the sake of
because you're selling them.
Because you're selling them, because they're on sale. They want quality. They want things that are long-lasting, things that will do what they're supposed to do. So let's also not think about our country only, but also the export market, the East African community, which I feel we have not utilized enough, the African Free Trade Area, and the rest of the world. Because the Kenyan market is so small, 55 million people, but the world has 8 billion people. So if you can think more broadly about the rest of the world, not just about our country and our counties, then we can turn out the economy.
You know, Prof, your statement is quite interesting. The Africa Free Trade Agreement, for example, has been held up by the Southern Africans for a while. We took care of the EAC. Uganda remains our biggest trading partner by a mile. That's where we send most of our products. But people hearing us are mostly wondering about what is government doing. That is really the question that is at everyone's mind whenever the economy is being spoken of. And then, of course, comes down to the issue of two things: taxes versus national debt. Right? So balance for us the role of the Kenyan in terms of producing services and goods to export, the role of these agreements that we have, for example, the EAC agreement, which seem to be shaking a lot of latest, given that we are exporting Mathakarua more than anything else. And then the role of government. You know, the government says that we've got a big debt, and what is taxes doing in terms of balancing this whole equation out?
You're asking a very broad question.
Yes.
And I'm happy there's not a cut or an exam. So I don't need to tax my head a lot. But let's start with agreements.
Yes.
The East African agreements, the African Free Trade agreements, the WHO, and other multilateral and bilateral negotiations. One of the things that I have always argued, correctly or not correctly, is that Kenyans are not very good negotiators. And I think that's one area we have been losing. whether we are negotiating with Europeans, with the neighbors, African, East African countries, or whoever you're negotiating with, are we able to get the best deal in our agreements? So that is one thing we must focus on. So that when we go to a negotiating table, we have facts, we have data. And we also must not think about today, but longer. If we come up with an agreement today, how is it going to be 10 years from now? Will the circumstances have changed? So we must get enough data to be good negotiators. But let's go back now to the next level, the government.
Yes.
The government all over the world is supposed to facilitate us to do what we are supposed to do, to trade, to offer services, to manufacture and so on. Because if you look at the government worldwide, most government don't own any business, except maybe in communist countries. But in a country like Kenya, the government owns very few businesses. I know it has shares in certain parastatos, but the government doesn't do business. It's me and you who does business. So the government is supposed to facilitate us, come up with good laws, good regulations, good incentives, give us infrastructure, give us water, give us power, give us whatever is supposed to we are supposed to get. So once we get those basics, we shall do the rest. And you just need to go to a place like Kamakis or take a superhighway, or even between Gong and Isinya, where a road has been built. Kenyans will come and do the rest. I've always argued convincingly that roads are very important because you can get water from the rain or from a borehole. You can get power from solar, or you can even use firewood to light your house, but you cannot build a private road. So it's very important that when it comes to facilitators to do business, the government should start with the roads. And it's very important the government should also ensure there is security, so that when I go to do business, I don't need to cross at 9 p.m. because I fear robbers and gangsters. I should be able to operate 24 hours. So once the government facilitates that, I can assure you we shall do the rest. And Kenyans are creative and entrepreneurial. The last question, and you're asking me too many questions. Can I refuse to answer some of them?
Unfortunately, you cannot. It is not the nature of the outset.
And tax. So when you talk about funding government services, because the government has to employ people and have to build all this infrastructure I'm talking about, where does the government get money from? It gets money from tax or from debt. Of course, the easiest way to get money is from tax, because it's a law. And once people pay taxes, you don't need to talk about any other obligation. Once people pay taxes, mambo imeisha. But debt, you have to pay later on. So what has happened in the last 2 years, the government has been torn between two things. Do we tax more Kenyans, or do we tax more so that we get less debt? And then the problem with the tax is you feel it immediately. You see it on your pay slip. Or if you're a businessman, you see it on your profit. The beauty about debt is you can spread it out to the next generation. In fact, some of the people who will probably pay our debts are not yet born. So what the government is supposed to do is, we know the government needs money, but it needs to balance between tax and debt. There's nothing wrong with the debt, by the way, as long as you put it in the right use. I'm sure all of you have some debt somewhere. So what the government should do is to balance debt and tax, to make sure that it does not stop us from doing business. It does not serve as disincentive. And once we do that, like all even developed countries, there's tax, there's debt. There's no reason why we cannot turn out this economy. But the government should not be seen as an enemy of economic growth by the citizens. And that's my biggest worry.
If we look at the reality of the situation, because I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the paperwork and we get wrapped up in the processes, like currently where the country is, public participation, it must be done because it's constitutionally demanded. But the reality of the situation is something that we don't want to focus on. And that is the amount of debt that the country actually does have. That if you go into this budgeting process that we are currently in, that it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to raise all this money, you're going to have a budget, then you're going to have the appropriations bill, you're going to raise all this money for you to be able to get certain things done. But the first charge on any money that comes into the country is debt and the repayment of the same. And we're looking at upwards of 70 shillings per every 100. That leaves with 30 shillings to then be able to do everything else. So this development that we speak of, this recurrent expenditure, which is a reality, there is no way it is sufficient to cover any of it. Now, whereas we say that debt appropriated is not an issue, what we are dealing with is debt, unfortunately, misappropriated, and that leaves very little wiggle room to do the things that would essentially help a country progress economically. So Kenya is in a bit of a quagmire, or maybe a lot of one. What are the ways to get out of this, since the debt is there and you must pay it back, but we continue to budget year after year?
I like your opening statement. Debt is a first charge. And I wish ordinary Kenyans like you and me were doing the same. So that if you have my debt and you get some money, you pay me first.
Yes.
Because ordinary Kenyans do it the other way around.
Yes.
Debt is the last charge.
Yes.
But I wish all of us were like the government.
Yes, please.
I think that's a very pertinent question. 7 out of 10 shillings go to pay debt. Now, unfortunately, the current government might not have incurred that debt. But the way government operates is even the debts that either been incurred have to be paid by someone, because government is government. So one way to pay this debt and reduce it, surprisingly, is to make us more patriotic, to make us feel good and patriotic about this country, so that we are more willing to pay tax instead of borrowing. But how do you do that? One easy way is to make sure that any tax that is collected is put into the right use.
There, yeah.
Because once I see that the money that my tax is being put into the right use, I'll not even try to evade taxes or avoid taxes, because I know my tax is serving me. I will make sure there are no potholes, the streets lights are working, there is drugs in the hospitals, the school fees is paid on time, or the school capitation is paid on time.
Oh, don't even get me
Once we
started.
see that, we are going to pay taxes. Now, if the people don't see their tax going to the right use, they will not be very encouraged to pay the taxes. Now, let me take you back a few years ago when President Kibaki became the president. If you remember, he never did any magic. He just made us feel good about our country. Najivunia kuwa Mkenya. So people are willing to pay taxes, they are willing to start businesses, and the economy boomed. So one of the things that our political leaders should do today is to make us feel good about ourselves, to feel patriotic.
How do you do that? Let me give you an example. I mean, it was a great thing, lovely stuff that we saw last week, whereby a 0.9 kilometer road is supposed to be built for the staggering amount of 800 million shillings, which in my opinion, maybe a little bit too much as it was. When you look into the books later on, you see that this same road, it did not increase in kilometers. The same road, according to the books then, was constructed or is being constructed or will be at 8 billion shillings. Okay? Yeah, in this country. So 8 billion shillings. So when we see things like that, because we're trying to make the connection, aren't we, Prof, to say that what are these things that then would make you feel good about your country? I'm hard-pressed to imagine that on one side, there are children whose examinations are in limbo today because the 5,000 bob that they should pay for a final exam, or the 800, 700 shillings that they should pay for an assessment exam, that many people cannot afford, we cannot find the money for it. But we can somehow misappropriate 800 million shillings. I need to know how that then becomes a reality that people will feel patriotic enough to pay when we see these glaring examples of misappropriation.
And I think that now completes the jigsaw puzzle, because if people have to feel patriotic and pay taxes and work harder and be more efficient, it means that their money must be put on the right use. And one of them is to make sure there's no corruption or to reduce corruption. Because one of the things that annoys any Kenyan in this country more than anything else is actually corruption. And corruption, unfortunately, if you remember, again, I'll take you back to President Kibaki's inaugural speech, because I remember listening to it. He said something that was very significant. Corruption will stop being a way of life, or corruption will cease to be a way of life. And I'm sorry to say that in the last 2-3 years, we have not had, or we have not focused enough on corruption. Because once Kenyans see their money is being wasted, then they will probably say, if my money is being wasted or being eaten by some other people, why should I work very hard? And that's why you are seeing a lot of Kenyans trying to leave the country. They want to migrate and go elsewhere because they believe systems are better. But I can assure you that a very small percentage of Kenyans own a passport. So majority of us are not going to leave this country. So the best thing to do is turn it loud. So I think it's the obligation of our leaders to make sure that they reduce corruption. They put that money to the right use. Because as long as that is not happening, people will be pessimistic. People will not work as hard as expected. People will not save as much as expected. They will not invest as much as expected. And even outsiders might not come to invest in our country. So I know it is something hard, but I remember it happened during Kibaki's era. Why can't we do that now? Why can't we reduce corruption? Why is it so hard to get people who are corrupt? Is it that hard? Is it that hard to take them through the court system? Now, let me ask a question. When there's a presidential petition after we go to the polls, that case is resolved in 3 weeks.
Yes. According to the law,
yes.
You must.
Why can't we change the law so that every case is resolved in at least 2-3 months? Why should a case drag for 6-7 months or 10 years? So I don't know why it is not possible to do that.
Because if we do that, we'll have no politicians left in this country.
I don't think that is true.
We're talking about GDP growth. We're looking at budget 2025-2026, and also looking at policy challenges. Professor Exen Iraki, an economist, is here with us in the studio this morning, and we are looking at so what can we actually do to turn things around? We're going to come back and maybe visit the GDP question just a little bit more to say, so how do you actually start to grow your economy? And these maybe are the things that we really ought to be focusing on. We'll come back and continue with this conversation. It's now 24 minutes to 8 o'clock. Come back after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Hey, Mambo Vipi Nairobi. Is your shilling feeling a bit stretched? Looking for value that really makes a difference?
Then it's time to discover the Kikapu Kibonge at Naivas, your true home of deals.
That's right. At Naivas, your Kikapu Kibonge is more than just a shopping basket. It's massive, it's bountiful, and the best part, high jai.
With unbeatable promotions, exclusive discounts, and everyday low prices at Naivas, you just keep adding more farm fresh ingredients to those little household must-haves.
Nabado, hutumi pesa mob.
So what are you waiting for? Come on down and fill your Kikapu Kibonge. Karibu Naivas, the real home of deals.
Visit your nearest Naivas store today or shop from the comfort of your home at naivas.online.co.ke. Naivas, your home of deals. Naivas Kikapu Kibonge. Naivas saves you money.
The weather with SpiceFM.
18 rather, at looking into Nairobi at 14. It's partly sunny, and it's 14 and sunny into Nakuru with 14 and mostly sunny conditions in Nyeri. 13 and a foggy morning in Eldoret, while Mombasa is cloudy at 25. Malindi at 25 is cloudy. Mostly sunny at 20 in Kisumu, and into a cloudy Kakamega it's 18 degrees. Kampala is cloudy at 20, and Dar es Salaam at 24 is mostly sunny. 8 degrees and clear in Johannesburg, while Mogadishu is sunny at 26 and Addis Ababa is sunny at 15. Mostly cloudy at 26 into Lagos, while it's cloudy at 23 in Kinshasa.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, on your side.
Traffic.
Taking a look at what's going on in traffic now as we are stepping into traffic hour, and it has started to build significantly as it's coming off the Thika Superhighway. It's going to be busy for most parts of the morning from all that we can see. The Eastern Bypass also giving through towards North Airport Road and very busy on Outer Ring. There is traffic on Jogo Road as you come past the Makadara train station. And looking at the crossover from the Northern Bypass, it's connecting with traffic that's coming on the Thika Superhighway. It's busy on the Thika Superhighway all the way from Githurai through towards the Pangani Underpass. So that's busy. Kiambu Road busy as well. And coming in on Limuru Road from Muthaiga, some of that traffic is going to find its way into this direction. Coming off Langata Road, busy on Raila Odinga Way and then through towards Uhuru Highway. So yes, we're in traffic hour, keeping an eye on things and trying to keep you not moving. We'll talk on SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, empowering you to achieve your dreams and secure your future with our financial solutions across Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Mauritius. I&M Bank, on your side.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Conversations this morning, and we are in the studio with Prof. Exen Iraqi. We're looking at I almost want to call it politics of economics, and that's what we're getting into as we're looking at this period where we're finding it so interesting how numbers will or will not play.
Prof, what is interesting to me, and you've mentioned Kibaki. I remember Kibaki had Anglo-leasing, and there was a bit of corruption during his term. You've got Uhuru Kenyatta, you've got the COVID thing, you've got NYS. You've got all that. And of course, this government too has been accused of corruption. What is the difference between the corruption now and then? Because there seems to be this flowery way we look at Kibaki's regime, and it doesn't seem to flow through as a narrative to other regimes.
That's an interesting question, because as far as I'm concerned, corruption is corruption. It doesn't matter under whose regime.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter which individual. But I think one of the big questions that surprises me about Africa is how corruption is always in the headlines. There's corruption in other countries, but it's never in the headline. And that has a very big effect on the image of a country. So whether it is from Kibaki era, Uhuru era, President Ruto's era, I don't support any corruption. But I think what I perceive from what you have just stated is that there has not been enough political will to fight corruption in all the three regimes. And that's what Kenyans are looking forward to. Because some of our leaders have publicly said how much is stolen each day, each year. And people always ask in the privacy of their thoughts that if so much money is stolen, why are you telling me why are you increasing our taxes? Why are you telling me to pay more taxes? If we can reduce that, if we can recover that money or get that money by reducing corruption. So I think we need political will to fight corruption, because it is a milestone on the necks of every Kenyan. It doesn't matter under whose regime, corruption is corruption.
Okay. Prof, you've mentioned, if we go back to the GDP growth over the years, 2023 we talk about 5.7%, 2024 down to 4.7%, but the projection was 5%, and we talk about 2025, the projection is at 4.8%, and we talk about a GDP that continues to go lower and lower year in, year out. But then again, you also find Kenyans who are not patriotic in terms of paying taxes, simply because they look at how the money is being spent and on things that are happening, talk about corruption, and no one really wants to pay these taxes. So then the pressure would be on the government. How do they turn these around in making sure that Kenyans, first of all, feel good about their country and they want to play their role in making sure that the economy is working? You've talked about good political goodwill in terms of dealing with corruption and changing the image of the country, but do we even have that good political goodwill where we start today, and how is that affecting the GDP and the economy of the country?
You know, it's very interesting when you look at reports by World Bank and other observers of the Kenyan economy. There's a word they keep on using: business sentiment. Why the GDP is not doing very well is because of the business sentiments are very negative. If you look at what happened last year when Generation Z demonstrated on the streets of Nairobi, there are repercussions because people are saying if through these riots some businesses were closed, others never recovered. So people feel that in future that might happen again, and they are very careful when they think of investing or expanding what they have. So if that's what I mean by saying that if the business sentiments are not positive, then people keep off, or they don't invest as much as expected. And I think what we should be spending time on here is asking, how can we turn things around? Because the economic growth of a country is made of two things, just like a pair of scissors, the public sector and the private sector. And you need both blades to cut. I'm sure you cannot use one blade of a scissors to cut. So the public sector, the government, must do its part. That's what I'm saying. You must facilitate. You must make sure that Kenyans are facilitated to travel. They are facilitated to get power. They are facilitated to get roads. They are facilitated to go to hospital, to get a good education. But you also must look at the private sector part of it, because those are the people who really generate the money. So the private sector must focus on being efficient, being productive, being innovative. But if one of the blades does not work, then the pair of scissors are not going to cut. And that's why we are saying that the private sector might do its part, But if the government does not do its part, then a lot does not happen. So we need more dialogue between the private sector and the public sector.
Right.
And that is why public participation is very important, in my opinion.
But beyond the dialogue, and I think that's probably one of the things that we suffer from the most, is the implementation. When I look at what things that happened during the Industrial Revolution, is that somebody was doing something so manual, and they realized that a number of things were happening. The population was growing. And so this thing that they saw that they were doing, whether it was the making of bread or transport, that they needed to move from point A to point B, and then they started to mechanize. They saw that we can do more if we are more efficient. We can grow economically if we have this thing working, and it works better for everybody then to be able to use. And they realized very quickly that the more people who were brought into this game, then we could collect more. And we could use that to essentially run nations. It's a no-brainer for me. It's not magic. It actually works. That the more people you bring into the pool, everybody chaka, a little bit, you grow the thing. So often I'm befuddled because I wonder, then why is it so difficult for us to understand this, and then for us to actually apply it? And I wonder why we cannot be then more radical in our approaches to some of these things, because surprise, it's not just Kenya who suffers this thing. Why can't we be so radical? Because like when you see that there's a cancer that's eating away, the doctor doesn't have a conversation with the cancer. He cuts it out and he says, let's now heal from here. Why do we keep budgeting big budgets? We know we don't have the money. We budget more than is actually available. Then we go look for it later. We steal half the thing and then we can't send children to school. Why is it so difficult to be radical in nature when it looks towards a progressive economy?
That's a simple question to answer. Political reality. We cannot be, because we are hostages of politics. I will give you a good example. The government is having a serious deficit. Every budget, every time we read the budget, there's a deficit. So how do we reduce the cost of running the government? The most radical thing to do would be to reduce the number of government workers.
Yes.
Because if you look at the amount of digitalization in the government, it logically follows we need fewer workers. But today, if you start laying off government workers, the political backlash would be so serious. People would lose votes, people would lose elections because of that. So we have not become politically realistic. And that's what we need to do.
Are we ready to progress economy? Are we actually ready? Do we want it?
I don't think so. I don't think we are ready to make hard decisions. And I don't know who is going to make hard decisions. And you say, I will make hard decisions. Even if I lose next in 2027, people later on will realize what I was doing. I don't think we have somebody who is going to do that. But if you look at the other part of it, there's evidence that we have been close to industrial revolution. And it's only that a critical mass of Kenyans do not seem to have been bought into that. I'll give you two examples. Think of the contribution of Boda Boda to the Kenyan economy. Think of the contribution of M-Pesa to the Kenyan economy. Can we have M-Pesa in the government, for example? The way the government is run like M-Pesa. That efficiency, that convenience. So if we can get those innovations into governance, I'm sure this country can make a difference, or this country can turn around. The question is, who is going to bear the cut? All these things we are discussing here are public and known. We know about them. We know people know that if we made certain changes, policy changes, there would be a difference. But nobody is willing to bear the cut because of political repercussions. Remember that our political leaders, at the back of their mind, they always think about the next election. And that's why there is a lot of focus now on 2027, which is very unfortunate. Because the focus now should be on turning the economy around. Making sure that the economy expands to maybe 5.7 or even beyond that. And remember that during Vision 2030, we envisaged a growth rate of 10%. We have never got it.
Never reached it.
And that's what should be the focus today. Because I guarantee every politician in Kenya, if the economy turns around, you'll definitely get your votes.
You see, Prof, we talk about, you've mentioned the need to turn things around, and they need to have a politics away from economies of the country. But seems as though all we do is just play politics. Economy comes second, or is actually not even a conversation that the leadership of the country is having. So how do we delink politics from economy and GDP of the country and just make sure that we focus on what is important?
That's the elephant in the room. If you remember when we were campaigning in 2022, as an economist, I was a very happy person because the 2022 campaign was about economics, if you remember. And for the first time in the Kenyan political system, the economy was at the front, politics was at the back. But as soon as the election was won, things reversed. Politics came to the front. So one of the ways to make things change is to make Kenyan voters realize that they have more power than they think. So if voters held their politicians accountable, and one easy way to do that is if a politician has not been doing what he's supposed to do, and he calls you for a public rally, don't attend. I assure you that if a politician go to a political rally and nobody comes because he's not doing the right thing, the next 1 month he will improve. You see a lot of changes.
Well, usually how he improves is he comes back with 500 shillings for every person who attends. And that's a key question. Prof, my question to you is this, as you address the politician and what should be done. We live in a very real space, right?
Yes.
Kenya's economy has not actually shrunk. Its growth has shrunk. Those two things are
the growth rate,
Yeah. Those two things are very different and key to remember. If President William Ruto was listening now, okay, what are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things you'd ask him to do to change from 4.7 to 5.7? What can he practically actually do?
There are probably 3-4 things that I would probably ask any politician to do. One of them is fight corruption. Because to me, that is Kenya's problem number one.
True.
In fact, if we reduce corruption in this country, a lot of other things will get into place. Because there will be money available for schools, there will be money available in hospitals, there will be money available for roads. Kenyan sentiments will become more positive. Number 2 is we must make sure that we preach optimism in this country. I don't know how many of you have traveled abroad. When you go abroad and you're away for a week or so, you are very sober.
Yeah.
But as soon as you get back into this country, something happens.
Stop selling it.
Yeah, and you get sucked into this cycle of pessimism that things are bad.
Yeah.
So we must make this country a more positive country.
That is very important.
And if we can do that, I see no reason why things can turn out. And number 3, let's focus on innovation, efficiency and productivity.
Okay.
Let's see what we can do with what we have. Before we call even foreign investors, before we call people from other countries, what have we done with what we have? And 4, and very important, as a Kenyan, remember that you are the key economic player. The government comes, in fact, you are the one who sustained the government through taxes and so on. Even the debt, you are the one who paid. So let's Kenyans remember that at the end of the day, is about them. So also ask yourself, what can I do for myself? The government might not do much, but what can I do for myself? Because if each of us does what he's supposed to do, the government comes and helps us, we can turn things around. I always get amazed when I look at the size of a country like Qatar or UAE. Very small countries.
Tiny things.
Or Singapore, very small countries. But they have done so well in the last 50 years that we use them as examples. So what have they done? There's nothing magical. They simply did what they can with what they have. They focused outside, and today they're economic superpowers.
You know what I find amazing about what you're saying, Prof, is the power of a positive outlook on an economy. And I've sat with many an economist and talked about, and they've literally said that the sentiment towards an economy can sometimes be more important than actually what people are doing, because if people feel better, they're able to invest more. How then can we, as the media, take up that role? How do we tell the good story?
I'll start by challenging you. Every week I saw in the media headlines on scandals.
Yes.
You have talked about agro-leasing. You have talked about all the scandals in each of the presidencies. Why didn't you list the success cases?
Well,
because what I found nowadays is that the people who are corrupt get more publicity than the good people.
Yes.
It's like when the exam results are out, KCSE, we publicize the
A's. The got 0 points.
But let's also give positive stories. I'll give you a good example. If you watch the American media or the American TVs and so on, have you ever seen an insane American or a disabled American?
They don't show it.
They don't show it.
Are they there?
Yes. By the millions, actually.
So why don't we do the same in this country? I'm not saying we cover things up, but let's be positive.
Yes.
So one way for the media can do is to bring success stories. And another way is what we are doing now. We are discussing issues openly and not hiding anything. Because when we tell the truth, when we share the data, people will be able to make better decisions. And I think next time when I come here, I want to find a border rider here sitting next to me. I want to find an M-Pesa agent here telling me the economy has been very bad. This is how we have done it. Because I think we are focused too much on the top and forgotten at the bottom. Because the people who run this country are the people at the bottom of the pyramid. They are the people you find at 5 a.m. going to work walking, not the people who are taken to work on cars. And I think we need to focus more attention on those small success cases because they make a big difference.
True. But then again, even when you have these discussions, Prof, there is the need for the environment to create such conversations to happen. Because yes, even when one is calling out the government, there is fear that I will be apprehended. So such conversations do not get to happen as should, which then brings about the question of public participation. Because we say public participation is not only just a law, but it is an integral part in ensuring that the economy gets to do better, because Kenyans have discussed, they have negotiated themselves around this economy. So how then do we create that balance such that public participation happens, that these conversations get to happen, and that we as a people don't feel as though if we have these discussions in public, I'm going to be picked up?
There's an example I have kept on giving. I'm not boasting, I'm just informing you. I was on a Saturday morning somewhere in Mississippi in the US, I found a crowd of people on a street, and I stopped to find out what they were doing. And I was told there was public participation on naming a street. Naming a street.
Yes.
So what people in other countries have realized that, and this is the mistake we have in this country, when we vote our leaders in, whether they're MCAs, senators, president, and so on, we wait until the next 5 years.
Yes.
We are supposed to be vigilant throughout, so that once we vote our people, wait a minute, we have made you an MCA, we have made you an MP, and two, we have entrusted our taxes with you. Anybody can tell you in any country, if you are left to do what you want, you do the wrong thing. So the voters must be vigilant throughout. And that's why public participation is important. That you come and ask your people or your readers, we have given you the money. What do you want to do with it? Is it the best thing you can do? So the moment we hold them accountable, they are going to change. But nowadays, public participation is very timid. In fact, it's sometimes done as a legal requirement, not to improve the debate, not to improve the budget, not to improve other things. Let's take public participation seriously.
I mean, it goes the adage that if you actually show people how to treat you, or you actually show people how to respond to you. So if we're looking, because this is an economic question or conversation that we are having, but the truth of the matter is that it intermarries into so many other things. So here we are, and we're saying that leadership should actually do better. And one of the ways that they can do better, be accountable about resources, is if the people are constantly keeping them in check. Now, from what you're saying, do you see a turnaround whereby if leaders expect that people are going to be vigilant in their citizen-centered governance, if they know that people will be vigilant in the question asking in terms of what has happened, that people will be vigilant, then you're not going to wake up one day and find that the seal is gone, kind of thing. Do you see then that we can actually start to turn this thing around on its head and not wait for a messiah to come?
That's why we vote every year or every 5 years. In fact, one of the things we have never remembered, or Kenyans don't remember, another citizens don't remember, is the reason why we vote every 5 years is very simple. Now, if you do something wrong in a company, we sack you or we punish you. Now, if politicians don't do the right thing, after every 5 years, we tell them to go home. So voting is not just about getting new leaders. It's about renewal of the system. It's a way of evaluating our leaders. Have they done what they're supposed to do? But my argument is we should not be evaluating our readers after 5 years.
Yeah.
It should be continuous.
Over 5 years.
And I don't understand how Kenyans behave, because we pay taxes and then we fold our arms. We should be following how that tax is used, because it is our money. In fact, I always expect at the end of when the budget is being read, and I hope that is going to happen this time, the last statement should be, I thank the taxpayers of this country for sponsoring this budget. They are never thanked.
Yeah.
I see breaks on the road saying this road was sponsored by this and this. But I never see something like this road was sponsored by the Kenyan taxpayers. So we vote, we pay taxes, but we don't follow up that money with the people who use it.
And we should.
That's our work.
And that forms a bit of our conversation. If anything,
Spice up your
5 years and not after 5 years. Professor Xen Iraqi, economist, has been our guest this hour. We've actually looked at GDP growth. We've looked at the budget and policy challenges. Thank you so much for being here. If anything, we remember to keep vigilant.
Thank you very much. And today I was rewarded with a cup of coffee.
A hot one at that.
And I hope it was grown in Kenya, not imported.
Oh, come again. You never know what will come into your cup next. Thank you so much.
I'll be there.
Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
But I would want you to test. I would want to test your generosity beyond this room.
Don't worry.
Spice up your life.
This is the news. Why I'm Lea Ubaga. The plant strike by Kiambu medical officers is officially set to kick off today. Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union Secretary General Davji Atela issued the strike notice on behalf of the county's medics on Friday last week. Atela said they have been forced to go on strike after the Kiambu County government failed to sit down with the doctors and find a solution to the issues raised by the medics. Police are probing 3 separate fire incidents that led to the killing of at least 15 people, including 5 children in Nairobi. Several others were injured as a result of these fires and are currently receiving treatment across various hospitals. Nairobi Regional Commissioner Kate Mwanza said the fires occurred in Mathare 4B, Kambi Aluru Village and Mukuru kwa Ruben. Mwanza added that the National Disaster Operations Center, in coordination with Nairobi County Emergency Services and security teams, remain on high alert. He noted that multi-agency teams have been deployed to all affected areas to support ongoing rescue, relief and coordination efforts. The government has directed that schools in Kerio Valley continue with normal operations, stating that security has been intensified in the region. This comes after teachers' unions and Kenya National Union of Teachers and the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers had called for the withdrawal of teachers from the area following the killing of Catholic priest Father Alois Cheriot Bet by bandits. Deputy Inspector General of Police Eliud Lagat toured the area and assured government officers, including teachers and healthcare workers, as well as residents, that their safety is guaranteed. He announced that all schools and key facilities in Kerio Valley will be guarded by National Police reservists. The whereabouts of Junja Member of Parliament George Koimburi is expected to dominate political discussions following his alleged abduction yesterday while attending a church event in his Kiambu County. The MP, who has had run-ins with law enforcement in the recent past, was allegedly abducted after attending a church service at Mugudhi Full Gospel Church in Kiambu. According to his wife, Anne Koimburi was assailed by 2 men in plain clothes and bundled into a Subaru vehicle while interacting with congregants. After the service, the development sparked outrage, with members of the public demanding the release of the legislators, even as authorities remain silent on the matter that has fueled fears of a return to cases of abductions and forced disappearances of people. And finally, in the international scene, South Africa's firebrand opposition leader has vowed to keep using controversial chants that featured in a contentious White House meeting between the US and South African lead presidents. During talks in Washington on Wednesday last week, US President Donald Trump ambushed his South African counterpart Cyril Ramaphosa by showing a 4-minute long video in support of his claims of a white genocide in the country that overcame decades of apartheid. Julius Malema, a 44-year-old opposition politician, was the main character in the video, seen in several clips wearing the red beret of his populist Marxist-inspired Economic Freedom Fighters Party and chanting calls to cut the throat of whiteness, as well as a controversial anti-apartheid song, Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer. That's the News Wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Good morning, and I love your show.
Thank you.
Having come from a Kikuyu radio background, I migrated to Spice because of the content.
I was born in a slum, but somehow I got a break in life. So sometimes when you see the sweating coming out because of the passion and whatever it is, behind the noise, there are people, and we share the same umbilical cord.
It shouldn't be like that. I am so disappointed. We used to tell Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga that he's doing politics of conmanship, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta, serikali hii ndio iko na conmanship ya hali ya juu. You cannot promise people that you reduce tax, then you double.
In politics, there is the issue of trust. For you to turn around and then stab the same people who gave you that trust, there is no other level of dishonesty. Imabo, utaona dunia tu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Hey, Mambo Vipi Nairobi. Is your shilling feeling a bit stretched? Looking for value that really makes a difference?
Then it's time to discover the Kikapu Kibonge at Naivas, your true home of deals.
That's right. At Naivas, your Kikapu Kibonge is more than just a shopping basket. It's massive, it's bountiful, and the best part, high jai.
With unbeatable promotions, exclusive discounts, and everyday low prices at Naivas, you just keep adding more farm fresh ingredients to those little household must-haves.
Na bado hutumii pesa mob.
So what are you waiting for? Come on down and fill your Kikapu Kibonge. Karibu Naivas, the real home of deals.
Visit your nearest Naivas store today or shop from the comfort of your home at naivas.online.co.ke. Naivas, your home of deals. Naivas Kikapu Kibonge. Naivas saves you money.
This May, the stage is set, the mic is on, and the search begins.
Welcome to Next Superstar.
From raw vocals to big talent, the search is on for Africa's next hit maker. Next Superstar is here. Premiering May 3rd at 8 p.m. exclusively on Remo TV Plus, StarTimes Channel 56 or Channel 166. Buy a DTT StarTimes decoder for only 1,399 bob or a DTH for 3,199 shillings to enjoy unlimited entertainment. Join judges Size 8, King Kaka, Motive, and hosted by Maina and Butita on Next Superstar. Renew your subscription on DTH Smart Bouquet at 1,199 shillings only or DTT Basic Bouquet at 749 shillings only. You can dial *858# for self-service or call our customer care on 0730 710077. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank. On your side.
Traffic.
quite fantastic as well as the address. And then
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, empowering you to achieve your dreams and secure your future with our financial solutions across Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Mauritius. I&M Bank, on your side.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
A very good morning to you, and we're getting into these conversations as we are on the 25th of May. Your live streams are up on Facebook, on YouTube, and on X. Mark Bichachi, Ndu Okoh, and Dennis Aseto with you in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. And good morning and welcome again to our audience on KTN. As we get into conversations this morning, we're asking a question. And actually, you know what? The charge has been put on us to then be able to glory and, find those issues which bear marks of positivity in the country, because we know in development circles that development begets development, and if you talk about things like that, the likelihood of it then to spur into other growth then becomes higher. But before we get into that conversation, let me remind you that there's somebody who is always on your side. In every dream pursued, every goal set, and every milestone achieved, there's a partner who stands with you steadfast and unwavering. At I&M Bank, our promise is simple. We're on your side. Whether you're launching a new business, seeking financial guidance, or striving for personal growth, we are here to support. So, also to empower you every step of the way. The commitment extends to covering innovative solutions to impacting lives, because at I&M Bank, your aspirations fuel our mission. Discover the power of on your side banking. Find out more at any I&M Bank branch close to you. And always remember, I&M is on your side. Professor X Iraqi was in the studio just the hour before, and one of the things that he said to us that spurs economic growth is this inherent belief. It's a feel-good thing in your nation that you have towards your nation, that inherently would spur growth. That when people have this good feeling, they want to work. They're ready to, drop sweat, blood, and tears in order to make sure that things develop and that they get better. And that you feel good when you see good. And that one of our jobs, one of our responsibilities is essentially to highlight those things which are happening, which are good, so that people can see and say, actually, you know what? Yes, a good thing can actually come out, and we can actually see that multiplied. So this is a part of the conversation that we have this morning. Remember earlier, I told you that we will be discussing some of the things that are actually going on in the country, and then for us to be able to have those conversations around them and what they essentially portend for Kenya. Now, we are asking ourselves, what are those things that actually are going on, and they're actually going on and going on well? Mark and Dennis have been poring over the papers for the last couple of hours, pouring. And we say that today, Monday, what we've been presented with in terms of what is good, and not just what is good, but what is progressive.
Yes.
And so I want to start.
Yes.
May I?
We know why you want to start, but start. We can see your ways.
I want to start so that
you take all the points first.
Then you guys can tell me the ones that you have seen.
We see you, Ndu Okoh. We see you.
There's relief because 24 diagnostic machines will be installed at county hospitals. Now, remember I told you that about a year or so, not even just a year, it's been many, many years in the making. I took I remember a cancer patient that we had issues, serious ones with, and we went to your level 6 hospital, which is the Kenyatta National Hospital, and we went in April. And they told us, okay, this is fine. We're going to check, and we come and start. You can continue seeing the doctor. But in order for us to book a scan for you, you book, you see the doctor, everything calls on the scan. You will not be able to see the doctor until October. October. Okay. Why? Because there was only one machine that was functioning at the time. and the line was extremely long because it's not just people in Nairobi who are coming to the referral hospital, it is people from across the country. So the queue was quite something. So you can imagine unless it then became an emergency or an urgent situation, you can imagine the agony that a lot of people have to go through, then waiting to then be able to access the machine and get a scan done then before you're given treatment. Not only that, but we've also talked about the Ministry of Health and just the general health practices going from curative health to preventative health, because we know that preventative health is less expensive. Curative health, of course, can be very expensive. So now when you have diagnostic machines, look at some of the things that you're doing, that you can then now have mammograms in different counties. And what can we be sure of? That you can catch cancer early. One of the reasons why the number one killer cancer in Kenya is breast cancer, and most people do not have early detection because, number one, it is too expensive, and the availability of scans then has reduced significantly. I'm building the case for this positive story. Stay with me. We also have seen other issues whereby somebody presents with a particular issue of cancer and it is in stage 4. By then, it's 3 or 4. The dangerous stages, usually for many a medical practitioner, there's very little that you can do about it. So when we see that these scans are finally coming into the country under this NESP program, the NESP program, in case you're wondering, is the National Equipment Service Program. This is progress and it is intentional. And this actually, it forms the skeleton of what we hope to see. They're going to be so the things that you're going to see: 24 diagnostic imaging CT scan machines, 2 diagnostic imaging mammogram machines, 30 operating theaters, and 100 laboratories around the country. It's something, n'est-ce pas? It is. It's structured under a multi-billion fee-for-service model. It's designed to efficiently upgrade infrastructure and strengthen early detection and treatment of common diseases in public health facilities. So this is actually going to happen. Last year is when the program came into effect, and it will see the deployment of an initial 24 diagnostic imaging CT scan machines, and the others will follow. According to one of the bosses, he says remember the mess scandal when it went to Senate and it just kind of blew up in smoke? He said MESS was like a lease service where you lease, we give it back. You are given the equipment and you pay over time. It was like hire purchase. It was very expensive. An MRI machine could cost between 150 million and 250 million shillings. But there was a gap because medical equipment has a lifespan. So most of the equipment lifespan is 10 to 15 years. So after 10 years, you are not guaranteed of services that is provided. Now, it will be upon the vendors to make sure that the equipment is okay and that they are functional. So, see, it's a good thing. It is a good thing. Yeah, it's a very good thing, I'm telling you.
You know, you'll be happy to know that I have found 10 good things.
Okay. 10.
Let us start with 1. Have you realized how long it has been since Kenya had a serious terror attack? You know, one of the things that is very easy to miss is how secure you are. Because you only notice your watchman if the gate is not opened or if thugs come through. Okay. So one of the things that Kenya has been able to do, actually, in cooperation with the Somali government, is to actually work out a way by which Al-Shabaab is not as easily getting into our country through the borders, and then B, not being able to recruit among our young people in the slums and other places where they used to recruit. It is no longer planned. You remember the stories of the Black Widow and ladies who were even going into Somalia and being able to be recruited into what were they called? Were they called terrorists or something? There was a whole
there was something.
There was a whole thing about that. That has reduced. That's going credit straight due to our counterterrorism activities, both the counterterrorism center and the police. So congratulations to them. It is a good thing to know that. Look, a place like what was this mall?
Westgate.
It's open. And has been open and has been a target, by the way, since, because of course they want to say we can do it twice and things like that. It's not. And when was the last time you saw an amber, they're not called amber alerts, they're called
Orange.
what? The ones from the United States and France and whatever, saying there's a security advisory about Kenya, there's a terror attack coming. Those things have not happened for a very, very long time. And security is not something we take for granted. So tafadhali, police, counter-terrorism squad,
well done.
I think a positive story from me would be the Standard Gauge Railway is working, right? And we talk about millions of Kenyans who have been transported by the SGR. We talk about 46,000 jobs by the SGR. But the most important part about it is recently there's a deal that the president signed in China. I'm hoping this time it will be made public to extend that railway from Naivasha further towards the Malaba border. And we've also seen that the Ugandan government as well has just signed a deal about 140 billion Kenyan shillings for SGR from Uganda, which then gives Kenya even more reason to have SGR continued from Naivasha all the way to the borders. That is one thing that is continuing. But then again, on the road that I use every day, the Gitaru interchange is finally complete. Kenyans can use the Southern Bypass, can use A104 easily. So yeah, something is happening.
Absolutely.
Good stories, you know?
Yeah, and just on that, one of the things that we should not skip about that, and it's a good story as well. The issue of the SGR going all the way to Kisumu is very, very important, and I'll tell you why. Our most important trading partner is Uganda. Number one, like before UK, before United States, before what? Uganda. Our making sure SGR gets all the way is very important. But number two, you and I come from where? Western Kenya, Nyanza. My friend, going home used to be a tussle. Yes, and one of the things that has happened, and Professor said, is where you build infrastructure, the economy is sure to grow. Look at SGR to Mombasa, for example. How many people immediately just think SGR? How many people, when they introduce the VIP class, just travel VIP? So there's an opportunity going there, but there's another opportunity to extend that we're not realizing, and why even Raila had issues with the AUC position. Congo, Eastern Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania, Uganda have minerals. Tanzania has gas. Uganda has oil. That they are all trying to evacuate from these areas. And we've been in a competition with Tanzania concerning the SGR and the ability to transport it. And we are actually back in the game by extending it that far. In as much as Tanzanians is electric, ours, the fact that it will go the length and breadth of our country is the most important thing, because we must be the country of choice when it comes to evacuating minerals and resources outside of this country.
I love it.
I think when you talk about matters to do with infrastructure as well, we need to also have discussions, because the traffic that has been around Limuru, especially during the holidays, has been a concern even for this government as we speak. And there are plans to finally dual carriage that road moving forward all the way to Western. And I think it's something for us to clap about and say, finally, we're seeing investments into solving a problem that has been there for a very, very long time. We only hope that the promises that there are will be followed through.
Remember the proverb of today. We are sticking to the proverb.
We're still sticking to the proverb. Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
And so this is interesting, because Black Syndrome says that he's never heard us talk about the sportsmen and women. I guess then there are many shows, Black Syndrome, that you've not listened to, because that is a constant here in the Situation Room, where we talk about the fact that the role that sportsmen and women have for a country's name and face are very huge. We've said many times on this program that we feel that sportsmen and women should be given a lot more than the title that they're mostly given. They're given CB. We're saying they should go as far as OGW. We are saying that sportsmen and women have lifted the face of this nation to a level that is undisputed around the world. So I'm going to have to fault you on that one, Black Syndrome, that it's just not true in terms of us not celebrating Kenya's sportsmen and women, because they are some of the ambassadors that we think actually should be front and center when it comes to how Kenya operates and how Kenya fares on the international scale. Having said that, we know that we're getting into athletic season proper, and what is actually going to happen, let's wait and see. The fact that we look for these stories, I think it's very, very important. The fact that so many things happen around us, and oftentimes we wonder really what is actually happening around us, that we are hard pressed sometimes to find them. I think it makes it a lot easier for us then to to celebrate them when we actually see them. Right? I want to actually talk about something regionally for Kenya, that we can't run away from the fact that Kenya, being big brother across the region, is still recognized. It's still recognized. The fact that Kenya has a little bit some bits and bobs of issues in foreign policy and foreign action and behavior doesn't mean that the last 20 years of claw-ups that Kenya has made when it comes for brokering peace and stability in the region is untold. And I will not, look at somebody like, take politics and push it aside for a minute and just look at the contribution that one person, and that's in the name of Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, what he was able to do when it came to peace and stability, in South Sudan, in Somalia, whereby the active conflicts essentially came reduced at that period. Sudan itself. Look at things that were done by General Sumbewo. Look at things that were done by Bethwell Kiplagat when it then came to restoring and maintaining peace in these regions. And then that would be attributed, almost solely to Kenya's intervention. And that Kenya is often looked to in the region. Call it what you like. But Kenya is often looked to in the region as, okay, things are going south. What does Kenya have to say? And when is Kenya going to get involved? So that is something that I think, as much as it can, it must be preserved. And that, what you do to ensure that Kenya remains in that position is very, very important. That, say what you like, but Kenya is revered in the region as one who's going to be able to help. When there's a flare-up in Rwanda, where is Kenya? When there's a flare-up in DR Congo, where is Kenya? Whether it was in the Huru government or whether it's in Ruto's government today. When there's a flare-up in South Sudan, where there's active conflict in Sudan and South Sudan today, when there's active conflicts, in Eritrea and looking in and then across the world, Haiti. However you want to look at wherever that agreement came from, that it's an option where Kenya then can be involved in some of these stabilization efforts to where we have conflict areas around the world. So I think that is something that should be lauded, number one. And that it must be protected in terms of what it can do in the future. You can't buy peace.
You can't.
You only have to have been in a conflict situation for you to understand the value of peace. It's like they say, you would have to have walked barefooted over hot coals and stone to understand the value of shoes. So you're in this situation where Kenya is able to often broker peace. And to be able to stand in that position, I think Kenya has some fantastic men and women who work at MOFA, some fantastic men and women who are skilled in the art of diplomacy, and they ought to be lauded. And the things that people have done in the past also to be celebrated.
And I think even as we just talk about that, look at scale it even further in terms of just the peace that we talk about. Look at the refugees that still reside into this country, because this is a home they choose because they know there is peace, that they can go about their business. And look at even the laws that we have in terms of recently the government saying in terms of we need to integrate refugees into the populace in the country and just have them live normal lives. I mean, it's very few countries who can do that. You can talk about other countries that are sending people back to where they came from, but look at Kenya protecting refugees inside and ensuring that they live normal lives. I think, yes, that is one thing to laud the Republic about, and the citizenry for giving the powers and the space and the peace and allow these refugees to be in the country and peacefully.
People talk about refugees and how Kenya has been hospitable to our neighbors. Kenya literally hosts one of the biggest refugee camps in the world. In the world. Hosting millions of people who have been displaced for the longest time. You look at the Somali, for example, who've been having unfortunately, conflict since 1990, since Said Barre was taken out of power. And we've seen this country be able to host them, give them the ability to actually do business in those places. There are NGOs in this country which are dedicated to actually offering services to these camps. We see people still to this date putting money together and donating to these refugee camps. That is a big thing that we've been able to do. And if you're a spiritual guy like me, you know that there is a blessing to a country for doing that. But also, we are not just a country for peace. On that very statement, we're the beacon of democracy. All around us, we are the beacon of democracy. Whether you want to talk about Somalia, whether you want to talk about Ethiopia, whether you want to talk about South Sudan, whether you want to talk about Burundi, Rwanda, Congo, Uganda, Tanzania, Kenya has the most democracy, the most freedom of speech, the most ability to tell Dennis Aseto that you can go jump off a pier and not be afraid to be sitting at the airport without your passport, and you're fine. These are not things to be taken for granted, because it is that environment that gives us stability. It is that environment that makes us admirable enough to actually go and broker peace in other places. Because guess what? People say Kenyans are angry people. People say Kenyans talk too much. But let me tell you, that's a beautiful thing. I live in a country where no topic is off the table. I live in a country where I can say what is in my heart and not feel like I am in trouble. And I live in a country where when someone tries to put me in trouble because I said what I feel like, my other citizens will rise up and say, my friend, you can't do that to Mark. That is the power of being Kenyan. And let me tell you, Kenyan people, viva.
Viva. And you see, I recently had a conversation with citizens from pretty much part of this continent. And one thing they could not understand is how the Constitution protects us and gives us the powers that we have, especially to just speak and to express ourselves. Because they're telling me in their country, you do that today, the following day, disappeared, never to be seen or heard from again. And if the Constitution protects us the way it does, that you are able to speak to power, you are able to speak our minds, and that we are heard, it's something that we should be proud of, and also say that we are doing well, especially in that democratic space you've talked about. Are
we going on a break here?
Yes, we're taking a break. We'll come back and we're looking at the things that are actually working and taking a minute to actually celebrate those because there are quite a number. This is a situation room, yes, and saying, you know what, if we must look for them and find them, we will look for them and find them. At 29 minutes to the top of the hour, our conversation this morning is around those things that actually are working and making sense to then be able to call them out and laud them. We'll be back after this and continue with that conversation. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
Save money on your rising electricity bill with StarTime Solar Home Solution. We offer a complete home and commercial energy saving system that includes solar panels with 15-year warranty, lithium battery with 10 years warranty, and an inverter with 5 years warranty. StarTime Solar Home Solution is efficient, reliable, and safe to power essential appliances, complete home lighting, refrigerators, air conditioners, washing machines, microwaves, iron box, instant shower, and entertainment devices, television, computers, Wi-Fi, and so much more. Say yes to reduced electricity bills and call us today on 0719 077 777 and get started on your green energy journey today. StarTime Solar. Power your life.
This May, the stage is set, the mic is on, and the search begins.
Welcome to Next Superstar.
From raw vocals to big talent, the search is on for Africa's next hit maker. Next Superstar is here. Premiering May 3rd at 8 p.m. exclusively on Remo TV Plus, StarTimes Channel 56 or Channel 166. Buy a DTT StarTimes decoder for only 1,399 bob or a DTH for 3,199 shillings to enjoy unlimited entertainment. Join judges Size 8, Fate, King Kaka, Motive, and hosted by Amina and Butita on Next Superstar. Renew your subscription on DTH Smart Bouquet at 1,199 shillings only, or DTT Basic Bouquet at 749 shillings only. You can dial *858# for self-service or call our customer care on 0730 710077. Star Times. Enjoy digital life.
The weather with SpiceFM.
Weather in Nairobi, sunny conditions currently, and we'll see highs of 24 into Monday. Nakuru is cloudy at 15 and it's 17 and sunny in Nyeri, with a foggy morning in Eldoret at 15. Mombasa is cloudy at 25 and Malindi at 26. Rain showers this morning. Partly sunny at 22 in Kisumu, with partly sunny conditions at 17 in Kakamega. It's mostly cloudy at 21 in Kampala, and mostly sunny at 25 into Dar es Salaam. It's sunny at 9 in Johannesburg, with 27 and sunny conditions in Mogadishu. It's 18 and sunny in Addis Ababa. Lagos is sunny at 26 and it's partly cloudy at 23 in Kinshasa.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, on your side.
Traffic.
Just a little bit of that traffic is still continuing in different parts this morning, and it's still busy coming off the Thika Superhighway. It'll take you through towards Kiambu Road, also with a bit of a tight mess, and it's very slow as you then approach Muthaiga Square. But I think we'll be doing all right as we get past that. The Eastern Bypass still has some traffic coming towards North Airport Road, and Outer Ring is all kinds of busy in both directions. Mombasa Road is also starting to pile up closer to us here than in the other direction, so that is busy. Waiyaki Way is also busy as you get towards the city. So we're keeping an eye on all of this. Talk to us, SpiceFM KE on X, #The Situation Room.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, empowering you to achieve your dreams and secure your future with our financial solutions across Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Mauritius. I&M Bank, on your side.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Around those things that we can actually see which are working, and celebrating those moments, coming off the place where we say that development begets development, and that if you can get people to be excited about the little things where they are, that what you do essentially is spur it on. Mark?
You know, one of the things that we forget very easily, and I'd ask Aseto a question, since he seems to be a big data guy. How much do you think, of which part of our electricity percentage-wise is green?
Electricity percentage-wise, that has to be 96%.
90%?
Yes.
You're quite close.
Yeah.
Kenya is one of the countries that, in terms of our green goals, is actually on track.
Yeah.
That's the one thing we forget, that we generate our electricity in a green way. We had dropped green options very fast. If you've seen the number of electric boda-bodas, if you've seen the number of electric cars, buses, this is a country that is moving fast and forward towards actually creating an environment that is healthy for Kenyans. We may say, of course, there are a few industries here and there that ignore the law, but generally speaking, and if you travel to other countries, the standard of greenness in this country is huge. If you look outside this building, if you just go to the top and look around you, you'll see so much greenery. At the same time, only city in the world that has a national park within its borders. These are not things to be taken for granted. They're things to protect. They're things to be very, very proud of as a country. That as other countries look for green goals 2050 and things like that, Kenya can actually do that in the next 10-15 years, and we can actually have a country that is greener, is safer, and is better to bring our children up in.
And you know, we all play our role in this green business in one way or the other, because if you look at what Kenyans are doing, okay, fine, we've had our problems with power and whatnot, fine. But you see, a lot of Kenyans have gotten into, I will install a solar system in terms of to be able to fight the inconveniences that I get from Kenya Power, unknowingly that they're playing their role in having a greener planet, a better place to be in. But even as we do that, you realize that Kenya is a biggest player in terms of carbon credits, because it is bought. It is bought. So we sell carbon credits, others buy it from us. And those who buy clearly are those who are making the environment dirtier every day, day in. But Kenya, we are benefiting because our environment is greener and we are actually doing even more while at it. But another positive thing that we have to talk about and celebrate and just say kudos to Kenyans out here is the fact that our airport today belongs to us because Kenyans pushed for it. It is something to celebrate because you know it is something to celebrate about.
I see what you're doing, but okay. Let's go.
They are done a deal and whatnot. Kenyans pushed. There was an entire conversation about it, and today Kenyans can sit and say, yes, this airport and everything involved about it, we are the ones who made that. But that aside, let's talk about Kenya Airways. Finally, this year recorded a profit. We cannot not talk about it. And aside from a profit, they equally bought a new plane, 737-800 Boeing. You know, it's a good thing to talk about.
But also, I always fly KQ when I'm going to my frequent trips, you know where. And I'll tell you, their services have actually improved. As in, for sure. As in, I know you're looking at me, you think I'm lying. But Kenya Airways, I was on it 2 weeks ago, and let me tell you, the services have improved. Even how they talk to people has improved. Their smile. Honestly, KQ has that profit. I can see where it comes from.
You know how we say that when you walk a mile in somebody else's shoes is when you actually experience, the difference. And that when we talk about a place where you've lived and all you know is conflict or underdevelopment, then that would make the folks who live in a more or less conflict-free zone to then not take it for granted. Hear what I'm saying. That it is only when you go to a place that has been riddled by conflict that you then appreciate the efforts that have been made to make Kenya more or less a peaceful nation. Things actually work in Kenya. Let me tell you, more or less they work. That there are people who that you can, for the most part, walk into. You can walk into a government office. You will find somebody who will serve you. That you will go to the bank and that you will try to withdraw cash from a cash machine and you will get cash, or if that still happens, or that your mobile services will be functioning and that they will be working until the place that you can even get frustrated on the day that it doesn't work. Boss, that the lights are on generally for sustained periods of time, that you can actually go 2-3 weeks without power being off
or having a generator on.
Let me tell you that those are things, and it's not just because somebody snapped their fingers, but it is actually by the effort of men and women who are making it work and making it happen, that they didn't take the whole thing and run away with it. That those things actually happen. That for a good part, that if you open a tap, water will come out of it. We talk about these things as though they are mundane and that they are normal. But the benefit of having an exposed mind is then an exposed experience is that to see places where these things do not happen will make you appreciate what you actually have. So look, something very simple and basic as keeping the lights on, I will have to applaud Kenya. And we can say, that's the government's job. Yeah, sure it is. It's their job. You're supposed to do it. But it's being done, right? And that you actually find that there's construction and things are supposed to, people are following a protocol. It's supposed to be done. It is being done. I think those are things that we can celebrate, because in the absence of those processes, this thing that you talk about being a living hell is incomparable to what you would be experiencing if you didn't have it. That you are one of only 3 nations on the continent. Okay, let's leave North Africa out of it, because those countries do have their national airlines. They're one out of 3 4-5 countries with their own national carriers.
And if we consider the little things they do as national carriers, really.
South Africa, okay.
South Africa died.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's like, okay, still trying to be, revived and still having conversations about a partnership with Kenya today. And we're also looking then at Ethiopia, still there.
Egypt.
And that's what I was saying. North Africa, Morocco has their own, Algeria. So we'll leave them out of that for a moment. But if you look west and then look into Central Africa, and
it's Kenya, and you'll be hard pressed to find. Mozambique has an airline, but
so does Namibia.
So does Tanzania, but
okay,
really, the jumbo jet is bigger than them.
There is something to Lord. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes the balance tips and it takes our attention away from the things that are actually working and that are actually happening. And it is by no mean feat to maintain. I'm not saying create or destroy. I'm saying maintain. That you can maintain that is actually, it is a big deal. And I think that there's a lot of responsibility we place on the shoulders of government, which is supposed to be, but that it actually happens.
And as we still just talk about matters to do with power, sometime last year we experienced serious blackouts in this country, and one would sit today and say it has actually improved. We no longer experience these blackouts. And even as we talk about it, the men and women who maintain these power grids today, if you go to Olkaria in Naivasha and have a discussion about Mr. Wafula, who's a geologist there, and the entire science around what goes on, and you look at what they are doing in ensuring that this country has power, because I remember visiting the control room at Olkaria, and they said this is actually more protected than even State House in this country, because it is a national infrastructure that ensures you have power in hospitals, in schools, in airports, and that they hold every time they get into that room. That is all they think about. That they cannot afford not to have power in critical facilities in this country, because Kenyans depend on that resource. Lives depend on that.
But you know what? Direct to President Ruto, and one of the promises he made and he kept, the hiring of teachers. Let's not bring in the other stories. Hiring of teachers, people actually got jobs, right? Someone is earning, someone is able to feed their family, someone is able to support their grandmother, and guess what? Despite the challenges, there's a teacher. There's a kid who's going to class, and there's an actual human being who actually went to school and has a working brain that is there to teach them. That thing is no small feat. And we're not talking about one teacher, 2 teachers.
And there are thousands.
Thousands of teachers. Thousands of teachers. Thousands of jobs given to Kenyans who truly deserve them, who've moved out of hopelessness into a place of hope. And that is a good thing. And it is also a step closer to a more stable education system, because at least we have the personnel.
I think that's when we just load and also be happy the fact that there's another promise, affordable housing. Finally, Mukuru, there's a house that was launched the other day. Everything else aside, at least we saw there is a building that has been constructed. It's called affordable housing. It is there. Every other thing is a conversation for another day, but at least it's there. Other projects I've seen in Migori as well, there are houses that are coming up. It is a good thing that they are coming up. Every other conversation surrounding it, for another day. Today we are being more acting as if failing is an impossibility.
Yes, exactly.
Forward thinking, right?
And the thing about housing, for me, even when it was suggested in the Big Four agenda, and when this particular government actually took it up as well, for me it's such an important thing. And my argument has always been this: I may not get a house, right? But that's not what I need. I need the cost of owning a mortgage in this country to go down. I need the cost of rent to go down. How does government do that? It's very simple. Number one, offer housing that lifts the burden out of the least privileged people in this country. Okay? When that happens, there's less demand for the houses we can actually rent and afford. All right? Number two, which is the most critical thing. Do you know if you borrow a loan today of 10 million shillings for a home, and you pay the least, which is 9%, you will pay back 27 million shillings after 25 years.
Yeah.
That is the problem, and that is what we need to fix. Now, already the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company has reduced mortgages from 18-20% to this 9% I'm talking about. Now, imagine 9% is still painful.
Yeah.
Right? It is still painful.
But it's incomparable
But
to 18.
you cannot compare it to 18 because a 10 million house, you'd have paid 38 million shillings back to the bank. So those are the kind of things that we need to actually care for. I don't think, for me, it's good. It's good there. Houses, good there, all of those things. But the thing that needs to be fixed in this country is the cost of a mortgage. It is too high. A mortgage, let me just vent for a minute.
Yeah.
Dear banks, the house is permanent. The land, I can't move. What is your risk? That you need to charge me exorbitant rates for something that I cannot move. For something that the only way you can suffer a loss from is God himself decides to cause an earthquake big enough in Kenya, if we've not seen in forever, to actually destroy my house. Banks should be brought. You know what the lending rate for a mortgage should be? 2-3%.
2-3%. Yeah.
Because why do you need more? But Serikali, 9.5%, 9%, we thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, from 9. I mean, by half. It's a good thing. I think another thing that we just need to talk about is fact that as a republic, despite everything that we go about, we still pay our taxes. You know what I mean? That it is difficult, it is as tough as it may be, but we still find a way of doing it. And that is us being patriotic to our country and making sure that things move, that we are able to maintain the power that we talk about, the water, that the roads are actually maintained, whether it's up to standard, a conversation for another day, but that we equally just need to clap for ourselves as Kenyans and say, Agai, it is difficult, but that notwithstanding, we are able to wake up every day, to go hustle, to go move mountains, to ensure that this country is working, that lights are on, that water is there, that even police officers on roundabouts, though we don't need them, are there.
Well, it's actually important. Water. Let me talk about water. Do you know that all the water that exits the plant is safe to drink in this country?
Which plant?
You see, water comes from a dam or whatever reservoir. Then it goes through a plant that actually then releases the water. All the water that exits that plant in this country is safe to drink. In fact, on this one, the problem is us, the citizens.
Yes, I agree.
Because we dig different funny holes all over, dig into the sewage pipe and then dig into whatever. But imagine if we just let the water flow to our taps. Kenya is among the very few countries in Africa that can say that all the water that is pumped into its homes, unless it is interfered with, is safe for human consumption.
Fun fact, I grew up in Eldoret, and water that we used to get from tap was actually good to drink. I grew up with drinking water from the tap. So it is something that I've seen happen, and like you say, the problem is us, because you find those who are tapping into the systems don't do it in the most hygienic way, as well as those who want to sell water go destroy these facilities, and you find that dirty water seep into the system, hence why today it is difficult to drink water from the tap. So then again, us as a people have just to play our role, play our part, pull our weight, and ensure that things that are working do work.
Well, I mean, so this is what we're doing this hour, and that, the call often is that if a people can start to have pride in their country, that it's likely that we will see a spurring of economic activity as a result of people saying, we're happy to pay these taxes. We're happy to then even be involved in more processes whereby even these taxes will then become more readily available for governments to then be able to do what it needs to do. My question is it enough for us to then be able to point out those wonderful things that are happening? Is it enough for us to just point them out? Do we see, and this is a question, and it's going to be a difficult one to ask because we said we were staying positive, but we must be positive in reality.
Yes.
Okay? Should we even be asking the question whether the good and the positive that we see outweighs the wrong?
The wrong.
Or the underdeveloped? Or the bad? Should we be asking that question, and does it matter?
It does matter. It does matter a big deal. And interestingly enough, I've been researching Lee Kuan Yew, the first Prime Minister of Singapore, a country which we praise a lot for what it has been able to do. And then I remember last week we had a question, and we were discussing about the power of the dignity of Kenya and its people. Here's the thing. The United States of America is a story. Because whatever they say does not exist when I go there. When you go to the United States nowadays, especially in the big cities, every time you take a corner, there's a white person without teeth begging you because they live in a tent.
Makeup shelter.
Yes. And they are there by their thousands. And there's nothing more scary than seeing a white person
begging.
That poor.
Yeah.
For those of us who became adults in South Africa, we thought that white people can never get to that state. But America tells the story. When you go to Dubai, I hate going to Dubai. I call it Plastic City.
Yeah.
Because it's made on this story of extravagance and nice buildings and whatever.
Everything is shiny and
Everything is shiny and new, and there are Ferraris everywhere. And then I talk to my friends and they're like, I've not seen my friends in a month. I don't have time to hang out.
Yeah. I'm
paying 200,000 worth of rent. It's a studio. I have to share my, but it's a story. It's all us. Every country, it's a story. The only thing Lee Kuan Yew asked the Singaporeans is, what is our story? What do we want to be said about us? When you go to Taiwan in the 70s and 80s, 60s, 70s and 80s, after they'd been chased out of mainland China, they asked themselves a simple question. We don't have oil. We don't have anything important. What is it that will make the rest of the world want to protect us? And they decided they're going to have one guy. Just go learn how to make microchips. And when that person learned how to make microchips, that one person, one guy, made Taiwan today the biggest manufacturer of cutting-edge chips to date, to the end that the United States is willing to go to a trade war and war with China to protect what Taiwan has. For me, the story called Kenya has to change. And it has to change because it is a story that has never had an author. No one has ever sat down and said, you know what, let's write this story. Kenya is written by every rapper, poet, politician, whoever wants to come and write whichever chapter, however they want to write it. That needs to change.
And I think as you talk about the importance of having a story that defines us, it's really critical that even as we grapple with finding what our story is, the same way we've grappled with our national attire, story for another day. Yes. But it is important that the citizens themselves take center role in crafting this story. As Ndu asks, should we ask it? And should it matter? Because then again, at the end of the day, like we were sitting here and we were scratching our heads looking for this beautiful story. You see, we've found them, but it should be as easy as water is working.
We shouldn't
power
have to
is
scratch
working,
our heads.
Infrastructure is working. So it is a question of let us find our story and let us give purpose to that story, and that everything just flows and works.
And that's why, because I have friends in high places. My good friend, Gabriel Mutuma. Hear me, you're my boy. So me, I'm talking to you as my boy. All this country needs to do is every ministry, every department, can they release just once a year a good story? Just once. Because you've got hundreds of them. A year only has 365 days. Just give me one good story from every department. I'll be happy. I must congratulate them that a brainchild of mine continues to exist, and they need to pay me royalties. Semana Spokes is back. That was my idea. Why Semana Spokes? the idea of a spokesperson in Kenya has always been to speak to. Let's start having conversations where we can ask you, when you say that this road that is costing 8 billion, we ask you, why is it going to cost 8 billion? Then you tell us it's going to be a 20-lane highway. Sawa. You understand? Let's talk. And there's very little communication and talking happening.
I think there are most government departments today who have agreed that the bane of their ministries is that they are, I don't even know, it's an inability. They just don't communicate about the things that they do. But if you were to do a sit down with the 22 ministries and the 2 advisories, that's the AG and then the advisories for gender and security, whatever. If you were to have conversations with them about things that are actually happening, not this pie in the sky story, but things that are actually happening, you would not be hard pressed to find them. And that we sat here and for a moment it was almost comical that we had to really dig and say, well, these are things that are actually happening. And I know Black is going to ask me about the sports stories, and we talk about them all the time. We do on this show, that we talk about the things that they do. Can we sustain that conversation for more than an hour? And those are questions that we have to ask ourselves, uncomfortable as they are, that we have to ask ourselves, can we? We shouldn't have to look so hard to find the positive things that are happening. And it's a reality that we live in, but this conversation continues, and we need to keep looking into them. We'll talk more at 9. Good morning.
Spice up. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice.
Good morning. This is the news wire. I'm Leah Obaga. Political allies of Governor Trans Nzoia, Governor George Natembeya, and top county government officials are expected to be interrogated by DCI today. DCI says the interrogation is over obstruction and damage of vehicles during EACC raid at Natembeya's home in Kitale. Police on Monday last week raided the home of the Trans Nzoia governor in Kitale under unclear circumstances amid reports of corruption charges involving over 5 million Kenya shillings allegedly funneled through companies linked to his associates. However, the operation was disrupted when a hostile group of individuals forcibly entered the premises, overpowering the security personnel assigned to safeguard the operation. Moi University Acting Vice Chancellor Professor Kiplagat Kotut has vowed to make bold decisions to restore the stability of the troubled institution. Speaking during the launch of the university's second phase of its renewable energy project, Professor Kotut said the administration has identified the core challenges facing the institution and was prepared to make tough but necessary decisions. The Vice Chancellor acknowledged the controversial recent retrenchment of 900 staff members, saying it was one of the painful steps required to stabilize the university. Among the institution's key recovery strategies is the implementation of ambitious solar energy project. A section of leaders from Rift Valley region have called on the government to ensure former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is prosecuted over incitement. The legislators referred to a recent media interview where Gachagua likened the 2007 post-election violence to a Christmas party should the 2027 polls be conducted in an unfair manner. Speaking during a church service in Keses, Wasingishu County, the leaders noted that Gachagua has on various occasions divided Kenyans along tribal lines. Senate Majority Leader and Nandi Senator Aaron Cheriot called for the prosecution of Gachagua for spreading hate in the country. Makueni Governor Mutula Kilonzo Jr. has slammed President William Ruto for allegedly discriminating against the Ukambani area in terms of development. Speaking at Kavatini in Kibwezi, Governor Mutula criticized Ruto for allegedly planning to launch projects undertaken by the Uhuru Kenyatta government instead of launching others under the Kenya Kwanza administration. Mutula says it is not right for the president to use his visits to deceive the public by launching projects of the previous government, and that the government should not discriminate against areas that are perceived to be in the opposition's camp. And finally, in the international scene, Uganda has suspended all military cooperation with Germany, its army said Sunday, claiming the German ambassador engaged in subversive activities in the East African country. The army earlier accused some European embassies of supporting negative and traitorous groups, singling out German ambassador Matthias Skar. It followed reports that diplomats had criticized the behavior of President Yoweri Museveni's son Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who is the head of the army. His son has frequently threatened members of the opposition online and recently boasted of kidnapping and torturing the bodyguard of the country's main opposition leader in his basement. That's the news wire. I'm Leah Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Traffic.
A little bit on the northern bypass coming in through towards Kiambu Road, so that is still busy. Mombasa Road not doing too badly. We're going to keep an eye on all of this and try to keep things moving even through past traffic hour. We'll talk SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so continuing with our conversations this morning, Ndu, Mark, Bichachi and Dennis Aseto with you this morning. And I just laughed a little bit to myself, not in mirth, but in, oh my goodness, is it that bad that we still can't find so much good to talk about? And one of the conversations that spurred from a 7 a.m. conversation this morning is that the biggest impediment towards development in Kenya today is corruption. And that's the conversation that we'll be having this hour as we get into it. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter where you look. You turn over the stone, you're going to find it like a worm in the mud. Corruption is slapping you in the face. That forms part of our conversation that we will have this morning, and we invite you to have that conversation with us. But before we do that, I have to remind you that you have somebody who's ready to hold your hand at any point and be right there with you, and that's the I&M Bank promise. Imagine having a trusted ally by your side always. We empower you with tools and support to turn your aspirations into reality. So whether it's a new business venture, your child's education, or securing your future, I&M Bank is here for you. From flexible financial solutions to personalized guidance, we're on your side, championing progress and celebrating your successes. So don't just bank, build your future with a partner who believes in you. Experience the power of on-your-side banking. Find out more at any I&M Bank branch close to you. And remember, I&M Bank is on your side. And so even as we get into that conversation this hour, remind us of what today's proverb is, Mark, from the land of Akwaba.
From Ghana, where you say Akwaba to say hello. How do you say thank you, madam? Say. Did you know that? Yeah. So, the proverb is, I want to read it exactly as it's supposed to be. It says, you must act as if it is impossible to fail. You must act as if it is impossible to fail.
Act as if it's impossible. So imagine if everybody had that, we all had that mindset.
Yes.
That no matter what it was, you say, I'm doing this thing, I'm going to do it right, and failure is not an option.
Failure is not
it
an
doesn't
option.
even creep into your head
Yes.
that this thing might not work,
Mhm.
but that we're just going to do it and do it. You can imagine the
Yes.
amount of, resilience and grit with which people would be applying, all of us ourselves, and what we would then be able to achieve. Phenomenal.
True.
Possibly. Okay, so ex-an Iraqi professor was with us at 7:00. And he's, of course, lent his voice in very many matters economic around the country. We're in a place right now where the public participation around the budget is being done. And we're going into the next week. By the way, if you can, in your little spots where you have conversations at the county level, the places where public participation is happening towards the finance bill and essentially the budget have all been gazetted. You can send an email. You can have conversations, having read and interrogated this document. And so that public participation is taking place as we speak. But this is all towards an economy that must be thriving, one that must be seen to be and actually is robust. This is actually towards making sure that Kenya will actually be able to achieve the BTL, the bottom line, and say, you know what, from here we are moving, that our people are fed, that livelihoods are secured, that security is guaranteed, that borders are kept, that healthcare is up to scratch, that education and all these other things that then responsibility of government to make happen actually makes sense. That you're getting to a place whereby somebody opening a business, by the way, Mark, this fun fact for you, that if and Dennis actually, that if you're opening a business today, do you know the minimum amount of money that you need to have it? 337,000 shillings is what you need for all the licenses and the whatnot.
For an industry, yes.
Yeah. And you as an individual, you are starting 337,000. Bob, if you don't have it, forget about it. What you're going to do is you're going to open a small shop over there and maybe spend the 15,000 that it needs for the minimum. But if you want it to run, whereby you can contribute to the manufacturing quota in this country, please go and look for 337,000. If not, sit in the corner to my left, essentially is what we are saying. So now we are going into this space where we talk about, it is possible for Kenya to flourish. These tiny countries that we talk about all the time, and everybody gives reference to, the thing that is like we do with Bible verses. We read the part where the wives are told, submit to your husband as unto the Lord. We don't read the predicate of that verse.
Yeah, to love.
Love her the way Christ has loved the church. Then she will open like a flower. This thing that we're here talking about all the time and saying, you know what, let us be like Singapore because they did 1, 2, 3. Do you know what they actually did to get to that point? They were not afraid to call things out. It is the same Singapore that we're talking about today that they used to whip people for throwing a piece of gum.
Used to, they still do.
For throwing chewing gum wrapper on the road. Yes. Your punishment is instant.
Yes. Kichapo.
Yes. You won't do it again. By the time you will hold that thing in your hand until you get to your house, and then beyond that, even if they should whip you, they have all reason to. You know why? Because not too far from you is a garbage bin that they have also provided for you. You don't use it, you suffer the consequences.
You as a taxpayer have put there to use.
Yeah, exactly. You've put it there, you don't use it. So are we looking, and it is the same country where we talk about where former presidents who have been caught in corruption.
South Korea,
and also South Korea, and also these ones that we talk about forming the BRICS, Brazil on the other side of things, the same countries we talk about today, where they have not just been sent to court and trial, but they have been jailed and are about to start serving jail sentences. This is what we talk about. When you look and you see mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of us all? You say Singapore. Do you know what has been happening in the back end? In the back end, they are willing to do the things that are necessary for them not to fail. That they say we either succeed or we succeed, because we are not going to allow this kind of thing to continue to happen. Are we ready to do the work? That unfortunately, when we overturn the stone, you see, when you when we were young, we used to play when we still had hailstorms, and you find a puddle, there would be tadpoles and things. You turn over the rock, there's a worm there, and you say, okay, this is thriving. You overturn a rock, you will find corruption. It doesn't matter where you go. What did ex-an Iraqi tell us earlier this morning? That the greatest impediment to this lovely Singapore that you want to see, the greatest impediment to economic progress and development is corruption. Are we ready? Because we want to follow the example. Are we ready to actually do what it takes to get rid of corruption? And I'm not just talking about the grand corruption whereby you are doing road that costs 800 million according to you and then you spend 8 billion. I'm not talking just about that one, but the one that we see here every morning, every afternoon, every evening. Are we ready to have a face-to-face conversation with that corruption and say we need to toss it out the window?
You know, the most beautiful thing when you talk about this Singapore and a marvelous place to be in, there are reports, whether they're true or not, I don't know, but there are reports that they actually came to Kenya and picked our own blueprint and implemented it to the core. So as we talk about the Singapore that we want, let's remember that we failed to implement that which we had. Someone else picked it and they're there today because we gave them the blueprint, which goes to speak a lot about our reports and just the corruption levels and the unwillingness of the political class to just do right by the people. Because we sit here today and we talk about, okay, fine, Singapore has built all these, they went in and they put in affordable housing. But we're not talking about the fact that Singapore went back to the people and had a discussion with the people and told the people, we need to bring in affordable housing. And for us to bring in affordable housing, you must help us. You must give us your money that will put up these houses. And this is how you'll have these houses. That is not what you're doing here today. What you're doing here today is imposed on you. You must do it. But even as we speak today, when you just talk about, say, about affordable housing, that money has been deducted from you. How much is it as we speak today? How much is it that has been taken from Kenyans? And how much has been spent in putting up these houses? That conversation does not exist. We're talking about fighting corruption. It is a good ticket item to always talk during the political rallies and whatnot. But when it comes to implementing and fighting corruption, no one wants to talk about that. Instead, what we see is the very same people who promised to fight corruption are the ones again being accused of participating in the very same corruption.
Is it possible to steal the whole thing? The chicken plus the egg plus the everything?
Actually use the feathers for pillow.
Yeah, take it all. So what do you expect to be left for then this development that we're all shouting about to actually happen? And I'm sorry, unless somebody can prove me wrong, when people say that there are not enough resources in Kenya, sorry. Tell me something else. Yeah. Because if I look, you see the mistake that they made is allowing people to find out this thing that allegedly happened at Kenya Ports Authority, allegedly. The mistake is that they told us at a time whereby just the other day 22 billion shillings was released for capitation, just the other day, last week. And it is still not, of course it's not enough. It doesn't make up the full 30% that is supposed to be paid this term. Remember, and I know Lydia is shaking her head at me, that there's still 7,000 shillings that's supposed to be paid from last term. 22 billion. Cynthia?
Yeah.
The money that you took to build a road.
Please get it off your head. You pierce yourself there. Now speak.
Let me.
Please help me because.
Let me help you. You know.
I don't understand.
First and foremost, I'm going to take a very radical view. So those people who like tweeting me and getting angry, prepare your pens. I think this country needs to start discussing legalized corruption.
You know what? I actually agree with you.
Yeah.
Because if I look at South Korea, right? And me, I'm a history buff. So I'll give you a bit of history. In South Korea, there are businesses called Chibo or Keiretsu.
Yeah.
These are big family-owned companies.
Yeah.
Some of them are Samsung, LG, Hyundai, SK Group, which is in energy and chemicals, Lotte Corporation, POSCO, and other many companies. Right? Now, let me tell you, these companies were chosen for corruption. Samsung was told, hey, listen, here's a government tender, supply to us the army's communication, the guns, the whatever, we will support your company to grow. The corruption that we talk about that their presidents are about to go to jail for, they are corruption with which companies? It's these ones. In fact, it's Samsung which has been mentioned, not even allegedly because the case has been proven. Samsung has been using its significant power to influence South Korean politics. So, we go to China. China is a currency manipulator. Right? It takes its currency, devalues it, so that when they export, it is cheaper. Correct? China, you go there with your intellectual property. You've designed a car, and then you want to say they can't build a car like that. They'll tell you, we don't know what you're on about. As far as we are concerned, the highest form of flattery is copying your ideas. Like my idea was copied. Right?
You're not going to let that go back.
No. I'm super proud. My idea.
Okay.
Right? Now, China is an IP thief. Correct? India decided, we've got, that time they had about 800 million people. We need to give them medication. The problem is these Americans will produce something, then want to sell the chemical at 10 shillings a tablet, for example. India's like, people can't afford this. We are going to make generic drugs. They created a whole industry called generic drugs, and what did they do? They made sure that instead of 10 shillings, it's 1 shilling. They tried to be taken to court. The Indians were like, we have no idea what you're talking about. But these are recent examples. Let's go to the Kingdom of Great Britain. And how much did they steal from India in the first place? Right? We live in a world where thieves become rich, and then they tell the poor us how to behave. Yes. That must stop.
You know,
we must.
I agree with what you're saying, because in the same America that we talk about, there's a thing called fast track.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There's a fast track, and you pay, and this is like for any kind of government documentation. For anything, you can fast track the thing, but you have to pay a few more dollars to have it done. So you can be in this line where you're going to pay $20, or you're going to pay $25, or you can come to this line where you're going to pay $50.
Yes.
It is the same people who work in that particular institution who are working. They don't bring people from Mars to do this thing faster. No. It is the same people trained on the same job. They're just doing it faster. Is that not how we employ corruption? That I want my passport tomorrow. So you go and pay the guy, whoever he is in which coven, under immigration there, you pay him 10,000 bob, you get your passport tomorrow. My question has always been, wait, so you can actually get this passport in a day? So that is where the case is, and it's going to sound radical, but it's true.
But I think, in fact, let's not go far.
You pay if you say, and you just document it and say, you know what? If you want to wait with the rest of the Watu, you can wait for 3 to 6 months to be able to get your passport. But we can fast track this thing, and if you pay the equivalent of $80 or $90 or $100, you can apply in the morning, and you can have your passport in the afternoon.
And
instead of doing this mago under the table.
It is a conversation that is actually being held in this country as we speak. Because remember, former President Uhuru Kenyatta said we're losing how much? 2 billion shillings a day. The same has been repeated in this government. But remember, there is something that Mr. Mbadi said, the Treasury Cabinet Secretary. Instead of stealing these monies and investing it abroad, please bring it home and invest it where? Here.
But we wanted to kill him.
Yeah, but you see, let's even give a simpler example, okay? In the UK and in many cities across the world, right? Buses have a bus lane to move quickly, right? So why then do we find it strange that matatus want to create their own lane and move quickly?
No. That one we have bad manners. Even just in a line of traffic, we are all in the line of...
We do have bad manners. Sikatai.
That one in the line of... Let me just explain a point. In that line of traffic, because I know it will come up. And, we think that corruption and this impunity is just about stealing money. It's not. It's even in our behavior. You have a line of traffic. Somebody has decided that it is them and only them who is in a hurry. And that the place that they are going is going to somehow magically move geographically. So that they need to move faster than you. So we start overlapping. Then we wonder what happens with the people who are coming in the opposite direction, and where are they going to go? But then we hoot and then we flash them and say, no, Songa, wait, let me
so hear me out. I specifically talked about public transport.
Okay,
not talk about the private people who want to create a line. In developed countries, what they make is they make a bus lane
for public transport, because they have a real public transport system.
Yes.
First of all,
so now even the matatu person, because he's carrying 50 people, you're carrying one Aseto, he should be given priority in terms of movement. Correct? This is what I mean. In the United States, there's something called lobbying. I don't know if you've heard of it. Right?
Yes, lobbying. Yeah.
So you create a lobby group. The most famous one is one for guns, the Rifle Association of America. Right? These are the guys who say, listen, selling guns in this country is a business. We like it when Americans have 20 guns.
Okay, that's putting it. Okay, but I get your point.
No, they like it. It's true, right?
True. Yeah.
And therefore, we don't want you to mess around with the Second Amendment. The right to bear arms. So what do? They come together, they get their money together, and then they say, we are contributing to your campaign X billion dollars to make sure you as a congressman, senator, president, whoever, you're not going to change the rules on us on how many guns Americans are going to own. That is why in as many shootings as they have in the United States, because there's no other lobby that is putting money together to say that our kids should not be shot in schools, that the laws that they want are not effected. It's the same lobbies that lobby against Planned Parenthood and not etc. That is simply people putting money together to bribe politicians to do what they want.
Yes.
But it is
But they don't call
legalized.
it bribe.
They do not call it bribe.
Yes, it's lobbying. It's called lobbying. You understand? My point here is this. We have developed in ourselves a society that is a shortcut society. Let's agree.
That's true. However, in those jurisdictions that you talk about, we will not see somebody budgeting a road for 800 million for less than a kilometer, and then in the books we see that the same road cost 8 billion.
I'm actually coming there.
Okay, come quickly.
There's an actual cost. There's a construction lobby. I see you. That's not how it's supposed to be done.
Sorry.
So, listen. Kenya is a shortcut society, right? When I don't remember whether it was Bill Gates or who was asked, what kind of person would you like to employ? He said, I like to employ someone who sees shortcuts, right? Kenya is a shortcut society. Let us legalize those shortcuts. Okay? You want to get your ID faster? Pay X. Fast track. Right? You want to do certain things faster so that now it is known. Then when you get the job and you want to do the job in 3 months, we pay you 3 months kind of salary. You want to be able to do it in a day, we pay you one day kind of salary. That's what we are paying extra. There'll be so many people willing to work for Gava on that fast track lane because they're getting more money. We've sorted that issue from the Watus. Second issue, there's some people called the the construction lobbies in the United States. Now, the United States has one of the most expensive construction costs per capita, per unit in the world. Why? Because these construction lobbies want to create a system where if they're going to build an ablution block, this is the best example. If you are to build it as a civilian, it was going to cost like 300,000-400,000 shillings. If you build it as a government, it's going to cost $3-4 million. Why? Because they created systems why that corruption works. Insurance, oversight, what is that? The environment, EPA regulations, all of those things, to make sure that by the time this thing is done, it costs a certain amount of money that then helps the manufacturers, it helps the people who sell insurance, etc. So simply what they did is they made sure that in the process of doing government things, they created spaces for multiple people to eat. Therefore, when you look at the United States and you look at a company such as SpaceX, the one for Elon Musk, the South African who's busy chasing away other immigrants, that one, it receives $40 billion, 40 billion with a B, from the United States Army to do what? To develop its technology.
Yes.
Now, this is corruption. Let me explain how it is. That the army chose one guy to support his business to go where it is going. Lockheed Martin, same thing. You look at what this thing, not Airbus, what's the other? Boeing.
Boeing
has a lot of contracts with the American government. Why? Because America understands if we are going to build our businesses, we will do what South Korea did. We choose a company, we say, listen, we have an army. This army has 35,000 people. They use toilet paper. You've got 35,000 bottoms to wipe for the whole year. Here is your contract. That kind of corruption is what we need to do. Right?
But we don't call it corruption.
We don't call it corruption. Now it is called, they call it the Marshall Plan. Understand? Where you understand, you look at the army, you're like, listen, kuna shoelaces. We need 72,000 shoelaces. Aseto, can you make shoelaces? You make shoelaces. Somebody else does a belt. Another one, the
Somebody
company
has ration food in cans.
food,
That kind of thing, you know?
Procter and Gamble, those two brothers who came together. Do you know what made that company? Supplying soap and candles to the army.
That's how they started. Before they started making these other things.
Yes,
that you see.
that is how you're supposed to do corruption. Wake up, people. That you put the corruption in a way that spurs the economy of your people. My problem with corruption in this country, and I know we need to take a break, this is the break I'm going to go on. I am tired and sick and tired of corruption going to Mau Hills, where you show us your gold shoes and your gold whatever, fake Gucci and whatever, and that's what you do corruption with. Corruption is supposed to create industries. Tukikupata umeiba 1 billion, usituambie that Gen Z destroyed your bar. Wewe na a 20-year-old wants to start a bar, you've stolen billions, you want to start a bar. Sasa kwa Gen Z wanaiba inaitwanga aje hiyo?
Jameson.
Konyagi, alafu kwako wanaiba Hennessy, you start complaining. My friend, we cannot be billionaires and millionaires and thousandaires and we're all building houses. If you've stolen a billion, start an industry.
We take a break.
Yes.
That's a rant.
At 29 minutes to, or rather, past 9 o'clock, we're looking and saying, you know what? So, but we're not going to call it corruption. Mark is saying we call it something else because it's time to have a conversation around, okay, are we mobilizing these resources? And if these resources are then actually being mobilized, let them go towards the building of the industries of the nation. You've built the army, you've built and equipped schools, you've built and equipped hospitals, and you're able to get something from it. Then Mark says it's okay. Is that the kind of corruption, or we want to call it something else perhaps, so it sounds a little bit more palatable? Lobbying in some cases, other cases, the Marshall Plan. Call it a different kind of plan in Kenya, but perhaps it's time for us to say, you know what, maybe John Buddy was right. Oh my God, at 9:30, back after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This May, the stage is set, the mic is on, and the search begins.
Welcome to Next Superstar.
From raw vocals to big talent, the search is on for Africa's next hit maker. Next Superstar is here. Premiering May 3rd at 8 p.m. exclusively on Remo TV Plus, StarTimes Channel 56 or Channel 166. Buy a DTT StarTimes decoder for only 1,399 bob or a DTH for 3,199 shillings to enjoy unlimited entertainment. Join judges Size 8, King Kaka, Motive, and hosted by Maina and Butita on Next Superstar. Renew your subscription on DTH Smart Bouquet at 1,199 shillings only or DTT Basic Bouquet at 749 shillings only. You can dial *858# for self-service or call our customer care on 0730 710077. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Save money on your rising electricity bill with StarTimes Solar Home Solution. We offer a complete home and commercial energy saving system that includes solar panels with 15-year warranty, lithium battery with 10 years warranty, and an inverter with 5 years warranty. StarTimes Solar Home Solution is efficient, reliable, and safe to power essential appliances, complete home lighting, refrigerators, air conditioners, washing machines, microwaves, iron box, instant shower, and entertainment devices, television, computers, Wi-Fi, and so much more. Say yes to reduced electricity bills and call us today on 0719 077 777 and get started on your green energy journey today. StarTimes Solar. Power your life.
The weather with SpiceFM.
All right, at 21 degrees, we're looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi. Still a foggy morning in Eldoret, currently at 8. That's at 25, and wind at 6
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank. On your side.
Traffic.
It looks like it'll be pretty busy for most parts of the morning, but I think we're getting where we need to go without too much of an issue. Just a little smidgen of that left on the thicker superhighway as you get into town, and you're also seeing that a little bit of that will finish as you're coming off of the Eastern Bypass. We'll talk and keep things moving through the morning, shan't we? SpiceFM KE on X, hashtag the Situation Room.
Traffic updates brought to you by I&M Bank, empowering you to achieve your dreams and secure your future with our financial solutions across Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, and Mauritius. I&M Bank, on your
Mature,
side.
intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's at 10 o'clock and we're saying, you know what, there's a way to get around this. Essentially what has happened, the same practice that's happening on this end of the pond is happening on the other. But what they've been able to do is that more or less they've been able to clean it up, give it a different name, and then present it to you nice and shiny.
Yes.
We're still stuck in the rut whereby we're saying, you know what, let me grab as much as I can, and instead of me putting it back into national industry, I'm putting all of it into my pocket.
Yes.
That's the difference. So this corruption that we see everywhere is everywhere, actually.
It's everywhere.
Right? But it's called something else. It's human nature. And that's why I really do believe that we like it, because it's like it's an appendage. It's part of you.
It's enjoyable.
It's not we're saying that's a good thing, but we're saying that if it is so difficult to get rid of this thing, that I must, what's in it for me? One. Two, if I'm saying that let me enter into a job or I get into a contract and I'm already thinking hapa nitakula wapi, or let me get a government job because there at least I'll know nitaenda meeting tatu hivi, nitaingia nitaweka jina kwa register, because that also is corruption. Nitaweka jina kwa register, nitakula per diem almost 100k, nitafanya kama tatu hivi, the month I'm sorted.
Yeah.
Are we not talking about things that happen? Hello?
It does.
Okay.
They do.
So now we're saying that instead of taking that and put it into your pocket, what we're essentially saying is take it and turn it into an industry booster. But that the mistake that we are making is that it goes into one pocket, as opposed to then being spread through society.
Yeah. And you see, as we have this discussion on the need of changing the name, remember these other places that we talk about and their idea of call it Marshall Plan and whatnot. Remember, it is something that is recognized by the country and it is put down under their laws. You understand what I mean? Here, it is Ndu, unajua venye tunaweza pata hiyo do, we know how to play around with the system and get that money to benefit us. Which then brings the question in terms of, as we talk about corruption, we always point fingers to the government. There's a question that has been asked here. Today, we are saying, yes, we need to fight corruption. We need to ensure that the government is put to task. But then again, what are we doing about it? At the end of the day, you get to a police officer who's arresting you because you don't have an insurance, which according to the law you should have, but you can pay them 100 bob and you continue with your journey. At the end of the day, you and I are playing part in this corruption one way or the other. So in one way we cannot, I think as Kenyans we need to come up and say, as much as we want the government to fight corruption, we equally must play ball and ensure that we don't partake and participate in this corruption. Because if we fail, if we don't partake in corruption, we make it very difficult for the government.
Let me ask you something. Do you think, and it almost sounds like a ridiculous question, but it's the reality of a lot of folk, that do you think the things that you and I do on a daily basis that are corruption, clear impunity, that we actually register in our minds at the time that, you know what, this is actually a corrupt act?
No, we do.
Do we register? Because when I call them the hornets, the parking people, because that's just what their uniform looks like. When the hornet comes to you and says, unataka gani? Utalipa gani ya serikali ama yo ingine? Yo ingine is cheaper, of course. Ya serikali is more expensive. So when they come and ask you that question and you say, well, obviously, come on, dude, 100 bob is cheaper for me than the 300. Which one do you think I'm going to take? Do you think think at that time, or even you who you say there's no littering here, and under the no litter sign is the hugest pile of garbage that you ever did see, you know, when we do things like that, do you think we realize at that point that we're actually behaving with an element of impunity? Do we know?
No, let me tell you something. We need to understand how the human brain is created. Human brain is not a moral machine. We keep thinking we're wired to know between good and evil. No. We know what is good for me and what is bad for me at that time. That is your primary genetical way to act using your brain, right? If it is good for you at that time to take 150 bob and not pay the 300 bob parking, your brain will not tell you you're doing evil. It will give you a reward. In fact, it will give you a boost of dopamine because you're being mjanja, whereby you're using minimum resources to get maximum benefit. That is how our brains are wired.
And that is where, Mark, well, I agree with you, that is where then the law comes in to make sure that everything is put on a same level. Because listen, that is why whilst the brain tells you that you need to spend the most minimal effort to get the maximum gain, but the law is there to tell you that as much as you want to spend 100 bob to get these fast tracked, the law tells you when you do this is what you do.
But your brain also tells you, Aseto.
Exactly, I agree. And that is why if we all decide to follow the law and do the right thing, we are able to deal with that wrong thing the brain tells you to
let me ask you. Let me ask you. You think our brains have not been able to tell us that?
It is
our
able
intellectual capacity has the ability.
That means it is a decision and it's a choice you make.
Let me quote scripture for you. Paul says, "Before the law came, I did not know what it is to do what? To lust. But when the law came,
I knew that lusting was wrong.
It created all forms of lusts in me." This is what happens. If I tell you you're not eating lunch today, the only thing you saw in your head is food. There is no psychology anywhere that has proven that the law has the ability to change the moral character of people. Let me finish. Let me finish. People who've studied laws have learned that if you create a law that has an incentive that is connected to the human psychology, that law will work. Okay? So I'll give you an example. There was a traffic light, right?
Yes.
Which, when it turned orange, would have a countdown. The number of red light infringements increased because people saw a goal to beat. You understand? Human psychology. It's very simple. Now, let me give you an example of how the United States Congress, which has hundreds of people in it, much like ours, is able to keep those congressmen there. Because a congressman knows, if I go sit on a committee, let's say I sit on the committee of insurance, right? I know which insurance to back, to invest in, because I know which law is coming. When I work on infrastructure, I know where to buy land. Not to sell it to the government. I know where to buy land because I'll put a petrol station there. They use their access to the house to do business. The former Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, would pontificate about how corruption and etc. is bad. Nancy Pelosi was a multi-millionaire, if not a billionaire. Why? Because she was trading in shares. So she used to sit on a committee that is going to issue a fine to Google. So she knows Google's shares are about to go down.
This is what to do.
This is what to do. You understand? You create laws that incentivize people to do the right thing. If you create laws that are punitive, the only thing you do to that activity is make it go underground. If you want to find a nice
That's
example,
how the black market was created.
Yes. Look at the prohibition in the United States. Alcoholism went up. You understand?
And Mark, what I'm saying, I hear what you're saying. What I'm saying here is the fact that we keep on talking about corruption. The government needs to do A, B, C, D, right? We have put laws in place that talk about corruption in this country. We agree it is in the Constitution. It is a choice that we as a people have made, not to respect the law, but instead perpetrate corruption. And it is on the basis of that if you and I do not play personal responsibility in respecting the law and fighting corruption in its own sense, corruption will never be a thing of the past in this country.
So change it and call it something different.
Yes.
And then what you ensure is that if you do, it's like, have you seen the movie Catch Me If You Can?
Yes.
So this gentleman did all these wonderful things. I'm going to call them wonderful and lovely, because he essentially ripping people off across the continental United States, and they even went, into Central America and all of this. Then they said, this guy's been stealing money, but we see that there's something fantastic that he's doing. There is an element of intelligence that he's applying to all of this. So how about we bring him to our side? And let us make him then turn criminal into essentially saint, and let him help us catch the criminals. So that's why I understand incentivizing. You create a law that incentivizes people to do the right thing. Because left to their own vices, we know human nature, you will not do it. We can pretend and say, in my own secret place, I'm going to make sure that I always do the right thing. That is why with the religions that we see that people profess to, there is a being who speaks to your psyche, who helps you. But on your own, you won't, because that is what human nature is. So whereby we see that laws have been punitive in nature, we say that laws have to be incentivizing now in nature, because left to our own vices, human beings will not take the high road. We won't. It's been proven over time. It doesn't happen. That's why we say, look, this 100 billion is sitting here. It's in plain sight. Somebody can take it. But what we are saying is, in the event that you employ it, what the law says is that you must then move it so that it helps the larger population. It sounds simplistic in nature, but that is what countries across the world are doing.
To put it in perspective, it's very easy. Okay, let's say we want to build a road, and the French are interested, and the Americans are interested, and the Chinese are interested, right? And they take your parliamentary committee to China, and they give them 100 million to spend as they please. Then they go to another place, they're given 200 million, and the other place they're given 300 million. Laws should be two. One, you're not investing that money outside this country. Number two, you come, you declare it, all right?
Yes.
And then you must put it in shares, stocks, bonds, whatever, and then the government owes a certain percentage of it, 200 million. Because that's all the Americans do.
Because we know you will go there, they will give you something.
Yes.
So bring some of it back here. That's all. Namuendele.
Yes, you understand. The thing is, if you're caught in corruption, let's not even talk jail time. Okay? It's a waste of time to put someone in jail who can steal. Instead, deal with what they stole. Tell them, if you build a company, the government owns 40%. Let's move on. You know why? Because it is safer to have my 1 billion in a company that is producing 100 million in profit than it is sometimes to trust some of these governors with the same amount. The thing is very simple. We need to realize that we are a nation of shortcuts. If we're a nation of shortcuts, let's monetize those shortcuts. Let's have the grand entrepreneurship plan of this country.
I like that. The grand GEP.
Yes.
So perhaps when we all took a gun to CS Treasury John Mbadi's head, perhaps we did not listen to what he was actually saying. Because he said over time, guys, this money that's sitting in these foreign offshore accounts or whatever, they know where they are, they know who has taken them, they know who has put them there. We'll be caught up in court cases for the next 100 years at best in order to get that money back. So he says, you know what we need to do? You set up essentially quasi-law. This quasi-law essentially says, you know what? Bring this money back to Kenya on condition that we understand that you did 1, 2, 3 sour. We all know, we're adults, we've agreed that you did 1, 2, 3.
Declare it.
We will not prosecute you. One is kind of like plea bargaining on a grandiose scale. We will not prosecute you, but what we are saying is bring that money, put it into the country where we can monitor it. Hopefully it will not re-corrupt itself. But then let a percentage of that go towards government for processing fees. put the rest of it in an industry that needs that kind of money.
Yes.
For example, today you are looking to industrialize your pipes.
Yes.
Put it there. And then you can get a percentage of that over the time of the project. But this is essentially what the man was saying. And we wanted to shoot him in broad daylight.
You know,
we almost brought the guillotine to
I
his
really
neck.
wished I was there, because the truth of the matter is this, Ndu. After working with politicians across this continent and then being able to work in the foreign departments of this country and seeing different governments, I learned one thing. Human beings are human beings. Okay? We only change when we are praying. After that, we become furu human. The truth is, the United States, what it has done is, if you are the mayor of New York, like this guy was, and you take a ticket upgrade, just a ticket upgrade, they're like, what kind of stupid thing is this you're doing? They'll arrest you and remove you from office.
Yes,
because you're
very
being
far.
useless. When Boeing starts making funny changes to their planes, that doors fall out, and they've calculated that one screw that they let go made them 2-3 billion in whatever, who goes to jail for 6 months?
The guy on top.
You understand? You need to understand that what you need is to keep money in this country, and you need to keep that money moving. Because what also happens is, if you're very punitive against corruption, then the money I have stolen, I have to be very careful how I spend. So I end up buying cars, houses, etc., because where did I get this money? When you make it less punitive, someone is able to wake up one day and put up 10 acres worth of avocado processing plant. Right? He's able to do it. You find out there's corruption, do the deal. Say, listen, give government 40%, keep the other 60%. What is his interest? You think he'll be stolen from? No, he won't.
Of course he will not.
And let me give you the last example, because I've overtalked during this segment. The United States of America land. In 1945, there were people being judged for atrocities against humanity.
Yes, after the Second World War.
They kidnapped, stole, took some of them to become scientists in America. Some of them won Nobel Prizes. Let me tell you, I am not going to kill a genius who can make us billions. The problem with this country is that we do not understand the importance of keeping resources, intelligence, and even that ability to be shrewd useful in this country.
But I think also the thing is that, we shun the this is the thing, is that you are in bed with the corruption, but you're facing opposite sides. Do you understand? That this thing that could actually, like you're saying, be of some kind of benefit to you, we're not even having a conversation with it, because we still we feel the shame. We still feel that shame about it. So we say it's corruption, but we're not having this full-on conversation. You're having a date with somebody, but you're sitting on this table. This one is sitting on the other table. So what I hear you saying, Mark, is let's have a conversation with this thing.
Yes.
Let's actually address the thing. It is right here. It has been here. It doesn't look like it's going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere.
Have a conversation with it and tweak how you operate with it, because it could actually be of benefit to you. That it is right there. It's front and center. It is right. It is in your face. Have a conversation with it and not pretend as though it's not there, or look the other way when you actually know that it is happening.
Or pretend you're actually going to fight it.
And you're saying and you've not fought it. You have no intent of fighting it. You're very uncomfortable to fight it, because it's half your friends who are involved in it.
Not half.
So pretty much the conversation that we need to have is, there is the conversation of incentivizing it, having a discussion and changing how it operates in the country. Then there is the other conversation of the law that says, if you get it, you go inside. There is also the other conversation, let's go what China is doing. We find you corrupt, we hang you, you're dead. Forget, we move. Wait.
The new thing is a lie. Let's be clear. The people who are caught by corruption in China are the ones who don't like President Xi. Then he puts you in trial, and everyone.
There is need to have a conversation around corruption with all these things in play, because we will sit here and say we need to have this conversation on how we need to tweak it and have that conversation. But there are people who are saying, if you are corrupt, you need to be arrested, to be jailed, and you need to die. All these people need to come on the table and find a common position on us as Kenyans, on what our position is with regard to corruption.
My problem, Dennis, is that there's no table.
Yes.
Nobody is having the conversation. There's no table. Everybody is talking about it over here, and we all say at some point corruption is bad, but there's no consensus in terms of course, there's a body which is supposed to be independent in terms of a commission that's supposed to be handling that. Okay, it's there, fine. But then they're over here having this conversation. Others are here having this conversation. There's no table where people are coming together and say, you know what, guys, this thing is too much. We don't know how to handle it. We don't know how to deal with it. That's my problem. There's no table. Had there been a table, these conversations that we're talking about would have been discussed there. Exactly. But they're not. The only thing we say is corruption is bad and we must jail people. And that one of the things on my agenda is to deal with corruption. Where?
You know, Dennis, let me tell you. Let me be the first to say, if a policeman catches me and my driver today, and there's an issue, and it requires me to be in court tomorrow, and the maximum fee is 500 shillings. But this cop wants 1,000 today, and I don't need to go to court. Guess who's getting 1,000 bob?
I know it's a cop.
Guess who's giving 1,000 bob?
You.
Because I lie not. You get. The truth of the matter is, at the end of the day, what is expedient is what will always win. The whole point of any wealth created anywhere on this earth, individually or publicly, it is expediency that is the number one thing. Right? And what does expediency mean? The United Kingdom left this country on its birthday, first day, with a debt in billions. What was that debt for? The British said, we built you a railway, we built roads, we created infrastructure for you, you owe us. They didn't say, we stole your mbusis, we stole your lives, we stole They didn't say any of those things. The truth of the matter is this, and as soon as the world, Africans especially, wake up to this, the better. The IMF does not have good intentions for us. World Bank does not. Neither does the WHO. The only game we can play is the game we were built to play. That's why the Chinese play their game. That's why the Indians play their game. Africans are the only people who want to follow the rules and regulations of the people who enslaved them.
No, you know what we're doing? That there's a pitch. There are two teams, they're playing the football, and we are just kind of like standing in the pitch.
Referees, yeah.
Not even referees. We're just there saying, hopefully I'll get the ball.
Yeah.
Hopefully maybe I can kick the ball, but we're just kind of standing around there saying, okay, is this how they do it? The ball fly.
It can't.
Get an opportunity. We can't. And that's why I think so many things that we need to redefine. We're talking about corruption today and the ways in which we operate. We're also talking about ways of government. This democracy that everybody wants to shove down our throats. We need to redefine even our way of ruling, our way of administration. We need to redefine even our own democracy and say this is perhaps the way it ought to work. Who says that what they decide is the way in which we need to operate? Who says? A lot of the systems that we use today, guess what? It's your big brother's shirt that you have now come of age that you can wear. That's what it is. That we're wearing hand-me-downs. We're wearing hand-me-downs in administration. We're wearing hand-me-downs in government. We're wearing hand-me-downs in how we operate with our economies. We're wearing hand-me-downs in how we do business. Because we have failed to see what is inherently ours and then take it and translate into modern day. Everybody that we are copying did that thing. Whether it was in 1945, whether it was in 1919, they looked at the situation and they said, you know what? We are going to adapt to this and make it our modus operandi. We say, what is everybody doing? Then they bring it. Then we say, okay, let's either copy or let's just swallow this thing and hope we turn into them. It can't happen.
Do you know what?
It can't.
What one thing that I think we should have done? Senate should not have been by the counties. Senate should have been by the tribe. Kambas, chagua your representative. Luyas, chagua your representative. Because at the end of the day, isn't that what we always cry for? Accept it. There is nothing wrong with having an identity that is yours. That you want someone who looks like you, acts like you, talks like you, to represent you. You understand? I do not understand why people are so angry about it. Because we just need to recognize that, guess what? If I'm a Mkamba and I hear
I want a fellow Kamba.
Yes. So instead of saying, we've got governors who just represent whatever, listen, kama unataka Kiluya, represent Waluya.
It is like the Hausa states in Nigeria, for example, like the House of Senate and House of Representatives. It is not possible that the person who is representing this place in northern Nigeria called Kano is by somebody who is from Borno. It is not possible.
It cannot work.
it is not possible that the person who is representing you is from a different part of the country. It only makes sense. Let's understand. So now this year, if we get somebody from the north who is president, in the next election, south. The next year, let's move. And if your person is a northern president, your deputy will be from the south. You next election, if your president is from the south, your deputy will be from the north. That is just so that at least at that level, let's stop making noise before we start dealing with all these other things. That is why I am saying it is about time that we started having some serious conversations. And we have people here who are brilliant minds, but fortunately we make mistakes and we don't document these things. Redefine who we are. I am not saying that we take wrongdoing and swallow it like the powerful pill and that should be our kryptonite. That's not what I'm saying. But look at the times in which people did things. What was the zeitgeist around the time where people were forming their countries, forming their democracies? What was happening in that time? Look at what happened. The zeitgeist around the time of Ronald Reagan was, you know what? We are going to make money. Until it was called Reaganomics. Because we are going to become as capitalist as they come. We will make this money, we will do it where we can, and that's what ruled the roost. That's why you are here till today. They formed their own. How do they take that pill and come and give it to you and say you swallow, and then we're just here saying, okay, how many? Can I take another one tomorrow? Do I need to take 2 on Tuesday? No. That when are we going to actually have the kahunas to say, you know what? It's time to do this thing for ourselves.
And I think it's really important that we start having that conversation now, because remember what Exxon Iraqi told us here. The biggest impediment to our economy and the GDP to grow is corruption.
You know, in Tanzania, they got rid of their tribal politics, but they have very heavy Zanzibar politics versus mainland Tanzania politics, and then they also have very heavy Christian versus Muslim. So they decided, this time Christian, next time Muslim. Right? Let me tell you, you cut your cloth according to your size. Sisi, my friend, we are buxom Africans. Then our fashion is coming from no waist iron board figures called size 0 from Europe. It does not fit us very well. God endowed us more. Let us accept it.
We can do better. This is conversations that should form, and I think it's actually time we started to cut our cloth, and cut it properly. Thank you for making and starting this week off in Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room with Ndu, Dennis and Mark. We'll continue tomorrow. Good morning. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life.